Planning Commission. We're going to call the order of this meeting. We are going to make a slight adjustment to the agenda as it's written, because we had an applicant that wasn't going to be able to be here. So we're actually going to shift Peter and Jillian your item up before the station area plan, so we can get their item done and then be able to do that. So with that slight modification, if I could get an approval of the agenda, that'd be great.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second that as with the changes.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Okay, do we have any changes or anything that we would like to adjust from the minutes from last meeting? Nope. Can I get a motion to approve?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting as written.
I'll second.
Get a motion in a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And our chair just got here, so I'll let you take over as we move towards, we don't have any administrative items, but we will jump right into our legislative session. First, starting with, that's a shift, Peter and Jillian Fife are requesting an amendment to the general plan land use map as well as the official zone map. So, Josh, is that you or Carla?
Carla.
Okay.
Hello, I hope all of you are doing well today. Okay, so there's two separate items that we needed to do, but they are very close. So the Fifes purchased this property. I'm sorry, it's not a very good representation of where it is citywide. It is on about 1350 South State Street. And the property, as you can see, is a rather large property. It was actually two parcels. The Fifes combined the parcels into one. And as you can see from the general land use, it is, whoa, come back. It is this parcel right here. It doesn't show as well on that map. And it is bisected by the industrial and by low-density residential as future land use designations within our general plan. And so before we can move ahead with any type of zone amendment, we would need to make a general plan amendment for the land use designation. Now, the land use designation, as you're aware, is not zoning. It is simply the use of the property either as industrial or residential, in this case, the lower density residential. And so we would have to do that prior to moving ahead with any zoning recommendations. So it can go either way. This is the last partial as you're moving south that is bifurcated. From here on south, it is all residential. And as it can go either way, we feel that with the property owner asking for the change to low density residential, that we would respect that. An argument can be made for it to go either way, but to respect the property rights of the owner, we feel that it would be consistent with the general plan land use designation to allow it to be zoned to change the land use designation to low density residential.
Could you zoom out and show us what
No, but I can go to the city map, so let me do that.
It's just right after the fork. It's kind of it fits in between after the Jefferson School. Depends on where you're going. Are you going to Mapleton? Or? If you're going to Mapleton's on the right hand side. If you're going to Spanish Fork.
I'm not going to Mapleton. What are you talking about? I know where I'm going.
It's if you go straight across
Yeah.
at Jefferson School.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I had to drive down there to figure it out.
Yes, so it's right here
Okay.
within the grand scheme of the city.
Yeah, understand now. Thank
Okay, is that, sorry, I apologize for that. It is kind of difficult to tell. And to put it this way on an image makes it so it's about this big. So I flipped it around and it kind of screws up the orientation a little bit. So this is a partial. These are being utilized as light industrial manufacturing currently. This property here is also another partial that is bifurcated, with this being the residential and this being the industrial in the land use. Right now, this is currently all being used for agricultural, keeping cattle there, except for this one random little spot that belongs to Spanish Fork. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was funny. So anyway, so that is the orientation of the parcel, and I will leave it to you if you have any additional questions before we go to a public hearing.
What's in that building?
This building,
Yeah.
this is the cabinet. I believe it's a cabinet shop.
Yeah.
Then across the street's the boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
The-
Yes.
Yeah.
This here, yes.
The old Pryor area and
Yes.
is on further east. Yeah.
And then, like I said, I can turn on the. So as you can see, this is that last property before it becomes all residential. Although this is separated parcels, it also has that little bit that is the two zones. Or excuse me, the two land use designations. I keep saying that. I forget that I'm on the general plan. I apologize.
Yeah, and this property is mostly accessed from Maine, because state has
Yeah,
it written down.
yes, and I'll talk about that more when we get to the zoning as to why, the reason for the combination of the parcels and such as we move forward into that portion of the conversation. Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but what's our maximum allowed density on low-density residential in our zoning currently?
It's not specific. There's not a specific correlation between R115 and R110.
Okay.
But generally, we'd say R115 is low density. R115, R110. There is a table in the general plan that correlates that a little bit
Yeah.
that we use for reference. But generally, this is that R115, R110.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant here that they'd like to speak? Oh, come on.
Good evening. So my wife and I, we purchased that property. That's currently being used agriculturally right now. If you look, if I can use this mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so here we do have kind of a, go ahead.
Might be easier to see if we take off this layer, just because it's not a very
Oh, it's okay. All right.
opaque layer here. Or it is a very opaque layer, I should say. There you go.
Awesome. So the property is surrounded on three sides by low-density housing. North to it, so this is housing. These are all houses, and they're all agriculturally used. That's what they've been used for. My wife and I bought this place because we do plan on just having a farm, a place for our kids to work. That's kind of the only purpose. So just north of it is that cabinet shop, and then that foundry directly across from that is also light industrial, but everything else is agricultural low density. So we're going to be building a house, or we want to build a house here, and then we'll just be keeping cows and horses in the field. So that's and there is no access from the highway. I think the previous owner wanted to one day make access, so that's why you kind of see that little line there, but there is no access from the highway to that property.
Are there currently no structures?
No structures on it. There is a ditch. This was, or would be considered somewhat, part of that area would be considered wetland. So the previous owner dug a ditch to dredge the property, and now it's just for horses and cows.
Okay.
Is it still designated as wetlands?
This northern portion is, yeah. I mean, it's designated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I called them. I've had conversations with them, and yeah, they're a-okay with it being used for horses and cows. So, yep. I don't know if there's anything else or any questions you guys have, but
Congratulations.
oh, thank you. Yeah.
All right, so we'll open up a public hearing. If you come up and speak on the topic, try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and make sure to state your name and address.
Is this for the front runner that you're doing now?
No.
This is
Not
just
yet.
for this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll come back.
Okay.
Seeing as no one else is coming forward, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any discussion or questions?
I have a question for Josh. Josh, is there a problem with the wetlands designation in that area as far as like changing it to residential? Does it have impacted at all, or?
No, first, the city isn't part of the regulatory structure around wetlands. Two, the Army Corps doesn't care what the zoning is. It's really only when you develop or make changes to the property that they start looking at it. And I have not seen an official delineation for this property. It's included on the National Wetlands Inventory map, but it may be an interesting exercise to see if a delineation was done, how that would come back based on more recent Supreme Court guidance. As you can see, there's really no waterway connection there, and the crux of the recent Supreme Court decision was that if it doesn't have a direct surface connection to the waters of the U.S., it's maybe not a wetland.
Doesn't
But-
the stream go through there?
Dry Creek does not go through there, no.
Thought it went through underneath the road there.
It's just to the north. It comes off Crandall's pasture and then goes under the road.
Okay.
But that aside,
It doesn't really matter whether zoning is.
No.
I just wanted the applicant to be able to recognize that may be
correct, and it sounds like he's
consideration,
had,
because if someone comes back to us and then says, okay, now it's zoned residential and we want to build lots, that just has to be part of the understanding. Because you'll want to have a delineation from the Corps of Engineers, because I've experienced with some property like that, and it's like, they can blow it up really
yes,
quick.
absolutely.
So you just want to make sure you got that covered, so.
And
I'm all for the farming and the raising the kids, so that's awesome, so.
Josh, as part of the building permit process and even planning zoning, we don't require a geotechnical study or anything like that as far as.
Sometimes where it's warranted, we do, yes.
So would this qualify? Would there be a?
For reasons particular to this property, including but also other than the potential wetlands, there's probably a warrant to ask for a geotechnical study here, yes. We always require them at subdivision, and sometimes, depending on individual lots, we'll require them for individual lots.
That's more, I was just wondering for the applicant where it's going to be a single lot.
Yeah, we've discussed that, and Mr. Fife's aware
Cool.
of that.
Okay, that's all, the only question I had, just kind of clarification for you, just so you can get your dream going.
As far as the general discussion goes, like looking at the city's general plan and the way this would affect or modify, I don't think it's detrimental to what the city is trying to do as far as keeping or maintaining an area as industrial manufacturing versus single family. Considering the surrounding general plan area is low density residential.
Yeah.
So,
And if there's any question as you move through this or move into the zoning, we can talk about the why this is the way it is too, because there's actually a why for why this area is designated like this. So if there's any questions.
What is the why?
Because back in the 40s, when we adopted our first zoning map, the city only went to 4th West and then went down here a little bit. And the city's industrial area was from 3rd West to 4th West and then down along the tracks. So if you ever are in the kind of the northwest part of Plat A, like up where Mike, our former planning commissioner, lived, those farthest blocks were undeveloped until really 60s, 70s, 80s at some point. So that was open land. It was adjacent to the rail. The old railroad station used to have some industrial uses around it over here on Second South. And so 70 years ago, 80 years ago, it made sense for that to be the industrial area, and it kind of followed the tracks down. Because if you look at it, it kind of feels like there's this interesting little sliver of industrial running through kind of farm and commercial and residential areas, and it's a vestige of that.
Is that the rail that's going possibly be retired or?
The two rails you see there, there's one just to the east of Main Street, and then there's the one that's over along 89. The western rail will move to the eastern rail because it's just two tracks of the same railroad. The uphill grade they made a lot lower because back in the day steam trains cared a lot more about grades than diesel electric trains do. So it doesn't need to swing all the way out into Spanish Fork before starting to go up the canyon anymore. So they're going to consolidate that rail to the east and make it tidy up everything all the way down to the canyon.
Entertain a motion?
There's two motions, right? So,
No,
The
just
first
one,
one is
we're
separate.
doing them in separate
First one.
parts.
okay.
I'll move to recommend approval of the amendment to the Springville General Plan Land Use Map to designate parcel 26026-046 as low-density residential.
I'll second.
The motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
All right, and then the second item now is just so that we can deal with the zoning of the parcel. So as you can see, so like I said, the parcel was, the property was combined into one parcel. And since the Feist would like to build their home here, the zoning would have to be changed as light industrial does not allow for single-family residential. And so they will be able to, with changing it all to R115, they'll be able to build this single-family home here, and then to be able to utilize the rest of the property for agricultural and farm, or, you know, a really great backyard. And so that is why with the parcels combined, the zoning needed to be changed so that they would be allowed to build their home.
Because the zoning just essentially mirrors what was shown in the
Exactly, yeah. It does get into, you know, the more specific designation of an R115, which is 15,000 square foot lots. So for that would meets the designation of low density housing, and then this is currently the LIM and the industrial that is designated in the land use. And those are the zones that correlate with those two land uses.
Does this configuration allow for if they ever wanted to make it into a flag lot or something?
There is enough property here that if they wished to make it into a flag lot, they could. They would have to meet the requirements for that, including access, length of the pole, and the lot that the flag, that is the flag part of a flag lot.
In full disclosure, you could under the R115 develop a number of lots on this property.
It's 9.25 acres.
Yeah.
So it's pretty substantial. So yes, they could be developed into residential. That's not an outcome that would be a worry to us, which is why we're comfortable making this rezone. Although that's not an outcome we would worry about. There's a number of factors here that would make that difficult. One being kind of the geotechnical aspect of the property, the amount of water, the amount of grade, the lack of an access to 51 is another issue. For more than a few homes, we really want 2 accesses in and out, and where we still have the rail conflict at the north end of Old South Main, that connection to 51 would be pretty vital. So yes, it could be developed into a R115 subdivision, which would meet which would not be a concern, but it would be a difficult and pretty expensive subdivision in terms of getting the site ready to do that.
Okay.
Oh, that was it. Any other questions specifically about the rezoning? Okay, we will open a public hearing about the rezoning of this lot. And so if you have comments, come forward.
Not seeing anyone coming forward, I move that we close public hearing.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so discussion on this or a motion?
I mean, no discussion. It kind of mirrors what we just talked
Yeah.
about. So I'll make the motion. I move to recommend approval of proposed amendment to the zoning map of Springville City to designate the entirety of parcel 26.026.0046, consisting of approximately 9.3 acres, located at approximately 1350 South Main Street, as R115.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? So that passes. And for the station plan, is that going to be you, Director Yost?
Thank you. Let me pull up my presentation. I'm glad to see all these people behind me that after one meeting, they decided that it was good enough they wanted to come to another one. So let me get the station area plan up and make sure we have the map if we need it. And perfect. All right, thank you. So the station area is the area essentially west of 1200 West, in between and east of 1750 West, in between 900 South and Center Street. Just for initial context, because I want to start with the existing planning in this area. So this is a map, a little kind of thumbnail map of the Westfields Community Plan, which was the plan that was adopted in 2002 that set the stage for the annexation of these 1,300 acres into the city. So the Westfields Community Plan specifically designated a village center kind of centered on 400 South from 950 West to the rail. It intended for there to be a mix of commercial, office, and residential uses, and more traditional commercial into kind of vertical mixed use type of products. It anticipated an intermodal transit center. By that time, UTA had completed their purchase of the right-of-way through this area to facilitate the construction of commuter rail. We didn't call it Front Runner then because we didn't have any of it, but now we know we call it Front Runner, and this will be the location of the first station for the extension of Front Runner from Provo to Payson. There will be 3 stations on that extension: Springville, Spanish Fork, and Payson. Spanish Fork will be located, the station will be located just south of Center Street to the west of I-15, and the Payson station will be located in the area owned by UVU and kind of in the north fields where they have some greenfield development potential. So this village center anticipated us having commuter rail, commuter parking, and bus connector service, and it actually says other kinds of transit, which I liked because even 20 some odd years ago we were still thinking of other kinds of transit, like bikes and micromobility maybe. Maybe we weren't thinking about self-driving taxis, but that's in there too. It also anticipated, as I mentioned, traditional mixed-use buildings with commercial spaces on the ground floor and commercial or residential spaces above, ranging in height from 2 to 4 stories in that Pink Village Center area. The goals in the Westfields Community Plan, the first goal specifically lays out the intention or the vision for the community core. It says, and I quote this whole thing, create a community in the Westfields that includes a community core surrounded by residential neighborhoods that include a mix of housing types, open space, parks, and public buildings such as churches and schools. Objective 1 is to have a community core for the Westfields. And the strategies to implement this objective are to have a transit-oriented mixed-use community core zone, a neighborhood commercial zone for the area east of 1200 West, and to encourage shopping, housing, and employment in closer proximity to each other, and in all to have a place to shop, recreate, dine, live, and work, to have a walkable community. To implement this, the city adopted the Village Center Zone of the Westfields Community Plan, which includes a majority of the area that's currently being planned in this station area plan, except for now as part of the station area plan, we're looking more at the west side of the rail as being influenced by the potential or by the planned commuter rail station, especially because we now know that the commuter rail project will include a overpass at night south over the rail connecting 1200 west to 1750 west, finally giving us an additional connection between 1600 south and 400 south. And it will also include a pedestrian bridge from the west side of the tracks to the station side of the tracks in the vicinity of the station. So it really opens up the west side of the rail as having opportunity for transit-oriented development. This is a larger version of that map of the Westfields Community Plan. This road here with the road all on one side and the beautiful linear park on the other side is what we hoped 1200 West would be 25 years ago. But this is 1200 West, this is 950 West, this is 900 South, Center Street, 4th South, 1750 West. This is really what they called at that point the mixed-use village core, with the transit station here, and then tapering off into residential density that by the perimeter at 950 South and Center Street aligns with the character of the existing residential neighborhoods, or at that time planned residential neighborhoods. So that is the planning and zoning context. In short, this area has been planned and then zoned for over 20 years to accommodate development anticipating the construction of the front-runner commuter rail station here. So we've essentially had a transit-oriented development zone in place for 20 plus years waiting for development, waiting for front-runner to come. So what is a station area plan? And I'll get to why are we doing one now if we've had a village center plan and we knew the rail station was coming there more than 20 years ago. So it's a plan for the land surrounding a fixed guideway, in our case, a fixed guideway transit station. Now that's planner and transit lingo for tracks or a bus rapid transit with a separated lane. Basically, the place where the vehicle goes is fixed. Unlike a bus route where you can just send the bus somewhere else. You can't really send the train anywhere else but on the rail. So that's why we call it a fixed guideway transit station. The station area plan evaluates housing, opportunities for businesses, industry, transportation, evaluates how public life fits into these areas. And the overall goal of the plan was to create a neighborhood where residents can access all the things they need for daily living within walking distance, including the list shown there. This is a map showing the actual planning area of the station area plan. This is an oblique looking from the south. So this is 900 south, 950 west, Center Street, 1750 west. And it's a little not rectangular because of the existing development in these quadrants. And I'm not sure why we didn't nick that corner out, but it would have made sense to do that. But generally, that's the area that we started evaluating. The actual area for which we made recommendations is smaller, which you'll see. So the why for the stationary plan is twofold. First, since I arrived on the scene here 6 years ago, it's been evident that our village center zone needed to be updated. It was crafted very narrowly to accommodate a specific development proposal on the Jakers property, or the property that time was owned by the Ashton family. And that has long since come and gone. That property's been sold to another entrepreneurial family in Utah County, and the zoning one, we've had the opportunity of decades to reflect and refine, and also to do something that is more generally applicable to accommodate the development that we'd like to see there. So that's the first reason that we really needed to take another look at it. It had been 20 years. We shouldn't let something sit around for 20 years without looping back to it and reevaluating and revalidating. The second is that House Bill 462 was passed in the 2022 legislative section, which mandated the creation of station area plans for cities with fixed guideway transit facilities. So fixed guideway BRT, or separate lane BRT, and front runner and tracks. Luckily, we're not Provo, that has all those BRT stations, or Salt Lake City that has a dozen track stations. We just have one. And we were able to partner with UTA because we were ready to go to start a planning process for them to use some federal grant money they'd qualified for and received to fund this plan. So they handled the procurement and all of the logistics on the money side, and then we were able to select the consultant and manage the project. So we were very lucky to be able to undertake this plan at an opportune time. So House Bill 462 asks us to evaluate and increase the availability and affordability of housing, including moderate income housing, which, again, in planner speak, is housing that's available to somebody who makes 80% of the area median income, which is in the 70,000s right now. It promotes sustainable environmental conditions. It enhances access to opportunities, increases transportation choices and connections, and finally, that it's adopted both by Springville City and the Mountain Land Association of Governments, which is our metropolitan planning organization. So they have to get together as what's called the Council of Governments, which is essentially all the mayors, and review and validate this plan and say, yes, it meets the state law, and we put our stamp of approval on it, concurrently with our City Council adopting this plan. So the guiding questions as we started out in this process was, how do we design for people that don't live there yet, while also considering the people that do around the perimeters? How do we create an economically sustainable retail core here without competing with other areas like downtown? And how do we integrate community values and tradition into a new mixed-use development? How do we create a sense of place in a mostly undeveloped area? So the principles that help us answer those questions are that in this area we should design streets for all users while prioritizing pedestrian comfort and bicycle safety. It should be a place where you have no concern with your kids walking to church, school, to get whatever kids get at the candy store nowadays, or I see little kids walking around making TikTok videos, so it's just a totally different world. That we should pursue residential options such as condos, apartments, or townhouses to create a multi-generational and accessible community, so people across demographic categories of income and family type and age can all live here and live here throughout different phases of their lives. We wanted to focus on public spaces that encourage planned and spontaneous social gatherings. We really want a neighborhood where things you need are close by, so that you are outside on your feet and you run into people, and that there are spaces that accommodate that and make that comfortable and enjoyable. We want to capture the value of the transit investment. This is a expensive project, and also a project that promises to provide very, very good connectivity regionally. As you may be aware, especially if you ride the train, UTA is currently working on expanding the double track sections of existing Frontrunner to allow the Frontrunner to move to 15-minute service at peak times. So that's really premium level service, especially for a commuter rail system. So it has the opportunity to really move a number of commuting trips off of streets and onto trains, especially for people that that already make that trip to Provo, and people whose work or school is accessible through the transit system, and those destinations are growing every day. We also want to focus on physically connecting the community internally and externally. We don't want somebody to be able to notice that there's a border between the station area or the surrounding. We just want it to be a part of the fabric that blends right in. We want to also visually harness Springville's values through building form and style. So form is kind of the shape of the building. If you reduce it to a box, how does it address the street? How does it fit on the site? And then style is really kind of the architectural expression. So some of the opportunities we see in the area is that we can expand single-family and multi-family residential housing opportunities. We can create a mixed-use core that responds to the demand in the market, and the demand that will grow as more people live there. And we want to expand multi-use trail connections, especially along 1200 West, 950 South, 700 South, and along the rail corridor. Create public gathering spaces and access to open space, and increase the transit infrastructure and ridership, not just Frontrunner, but local transit, local bus service as well. Lastly, we want to create a sense of place that reflects our values, identity, and our history. So the recommendations in the plan, the first is the street network. This is a general expression of the policy and the plan to have a pretty fine-grained and pretty dense street network. So we want to have lots of connections, lots of corners. We plan to connect 1600 I can never remember quite what we call the roads, 1550, 1600 West, a frontage road essentially under the rail, along the rail, under 400 South on both sides of the rail, so that you'll be able to come from Merritt up here and drive or walk down this street to the Frontrunner station and cross under 400 South without actually crossing 400 South. And the same thing on the west side. So if you work at Wavetronics, you can get off the train, walk across the bridge, and a short walk or bike ride up to Wavetronics without crossing 4 South. And it also anticipates, as I mentioned previously, this connection of 9th South over the rail line here. We left this alternative 2 here in for the chance that through some miracle we were allowed to create an at-grade crossing right in the middle, right next to the station, that would help tie these two sides together even more. That won't happen, but if it does, we've said in the plan that we'd sure like that. The Frontrunner station really lives in the northern part of the site. It initially will be a station like at Provo, where the platform is long enough to fit the number of trains we run right now. If you go to Provo and look, you can see that basically a skeleton platform extends farther to the east under University that would accommodate the total longest train we may run in the future. So that's where the front runner station would be located, again on the east side of the rail. Parks, trails, and open space, we anticipate connecting both the 1200 West Greenway, not the Dry Creek Parkway, sorry, that's labeled incorrectly, as well as a trail along the underpass, the 1600 West corridor, and back, and hopefully back down along the rail as much as we can accommodate it, and then 7th South and 900 South. We also plan to have open space in the northern part of the project on the east side of the rail, and open space on the southern portion of the project on the south side of the rail. We also may have some open space here as well, and as we look at development concepts, we're seeing that there may be an opportunity to have additional space on this side. But this is a general vision level expression of that we'd like to have open space in the north and open space in the south. Just like the streets, doesn't mean these are exactly where the streets are going to be or exactly where the open space is going to be, but that this is the general idea. Again, the village core here really steps up in intensity as we get closer to the rail platform and may provide some opportunities for more traditional commercial as we get closer to the 1200 West corridor. Now, the total crux of this plan, the real thing that is sets the policy in the most impactful way, is this land use type map. What it does is it essentially breaks it up into these illustrative blocks that we've discussed and assigns a land use type to those blocks. Those land use types range from residential 10, and this 10 represents a unit per acre value. You've probably all heard me preach about how units per acre is a terrible way to describe what you're going to get, but it is a way to tell you how many units you may expect in a certain area, but it's not going to tell you whether you're going to get a Soviet communist block or a cute Pasadena garden apartment. That we do that with another part of the plan. So we range from residential 10 to residential 30, and then mixed use residential areas that go up to 4 stories, and then mixed use commercial of 3 to 4 stories in this core area here, essentially generally north of 700 South. And the northwest quadrant will stay commercial as it is today. We don't anticipate that changing and are not recommending that it change. We are recommending, again, that we create a good system of streets in there where it's currently lacking. Then down on the south, the plan intends to keep the area directly to the west of the station in a commercial land use, as well as the area along 1750 West between the existing Desert Industries and Bishop Storehouse down to 900 South where the overpass will be. Now the biggest difference between this map and the one you saw earlier in the Westfields Community Plan is the introduction of residential on the west side of the rail here. And that is the residential 15 and the residential 20. And I'll show you some images of the form of what that development likely will look like, and then also talk through the physical parameters of that development. Coming back on the west side where we come and approach existing neighborhoods, we'll be back down in this residential 10, tapering up to the most intense residential adjacent to 4th South, and then tapering back down again as we approach the existing development in north of Center Street and to the east of 1200 West. This is a massing diagram that describes the range of housing types that could be expected in the residential 10 area, ranging from larger lot single-family detached homes, smaller single-family detached homes, up to townhomes. All of that is intended to be alley serviced. So all the parking will be accessed off an alley. The maximum height would be 2.5 stories, so you could have a townhome with 2 full stories and then essentially a third story and a gable, potentially not a third story, a half story. And there's a whole building code description of what is really a half story. The setbacks are outlined here. That these are kind of the suggestions that the front setback be 15 feet. I think that might be a little much as we start calibrating this, but those are generally the parameters, and that the minimum lot size, or the lot sizes would range between 3,000 and 8,000 square feet generally. In the residential 15, we're more likely to see some small scale cottages and row homes, like you see here, duplexes, and then up to probably the most intense, most intense is a good word, development in the residential 15 would be a 2-story or 2 to 3 story multifamily building with setbacks, again, still not tight to the sidewalk, urban type of setbacks, but still residential neighborhood type setbacks. And also including a recommendation of 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And something important to mention here, and I think it's illustrated well by the graphic, but we also write it in here that we're really looking for a mix of lot sizes and density to provide diversity in scale and appearance and type, so that we don't just have one whole block of townhomes. Okay, where do you live? Oh, I live in the townhomes. But that there is a gradual and blended change from the more village center vertical mixed use product in the middle to the existing single family and townhome neighborhoods that we have at the perimeter. The residential 20 pushes up the number of units permitted, takes out the minimum maximum lot sizes, and has a maximum height of 3 stories as a recommendation, as well as that diversity in lot sizes and lot types. In the residential 30, it's a max height of 4 stories with 30 dwelling units per acre. And this is where we get into the more urban village center character, where we're really at that 0 setback, where our buildings up are against the street as they are in a traditional downtown like we have on Main Street. The commercial is more of the traditional commercial we see along 4 South, but bringing the buildings to the street and trying to maintain that street wall and that good permeability and engagement with the street as much as possible, instead of kind of the traditional strip mall that puts the parking out in front. So the outcomes here, the maximum number of dwelling units that this plan anticipates across the planning area is 1,311, 69 acres of commercial with 158 total acres, giving us a residential density of about 8.3 units to the acre. And if we go back to I probably should have put a hyperlink in here, so I'm just going to hold down the key. If we go back to the Westfield's plan, far back to the Westfield's plan. If you take, and if anyone's interested, I have the spreadsheet with all of these blocks called out. If you do the math here, it comes out to 8 to 10 units an acre. So we're essentially in the same place in terms of residential yield as we were before, but with the addition of the bit of residential on the west side of the rail. From an as I mentioned in the staff report, from a capital facilities planning perspective, so our utilities, transportation, all of those things, this is within the range that we anticipated in that plan 20 some odd years ago, and have been building all of our utilities too. So all of the sewer is perfectly sufficient here. We have enough sewer, we have enough water, power. There's actually a big power line and a big sewer trunk line running right kind of along the rail. And all of the transportation infrastructure has been designed since we annexed the Westfields, knowing that there will be a front runner station there, and the network's been designed to accommodate that. So, well, as a standalone number, without any context, 1,300 seems like a lot. But in the overall context of the Westfields, where we've seen less residential product than we anticipated, as well as unfortunately less diversity, we're still comfortably within the realm of the planning we did, the initial planning we did for this area in terms of how many people it may accommodate and how many houses or residential units it may accommodate.
Are there any criteria or limitations to help create that diversity in housing type, or?
Yes, and I'll talk about it a little bit here in the next steps. So the first next step after we, well, I guess I should probably jump back in terms of next step. I was jumping ahead as I wrote this. The next step is after you have a public hearing and make a recommendation to the city council will have a meeting where they consider your recommendation, they review the comment from the public hearing, and they discuss and make a recommendation on the adoption of this plan. If we also have to take it to MAG and have them certified as well, and those two parts kind of overlap each other a little bit. In terms of after the plan is adopted, if it is, we are actually already kind of working on zoning so that we don't have to start from scratch when we're through this process. The zoning is where we get into all the specific regulations of exactly how tall is it, exactly how big are the setbacks, what type of mix is there between different types of units, how much open space is there, what types of open space, what do the streets look like, everything down to, is it a planted park strip with grass, or is it a park strip with bricks and tree wells and benches because it's in the village center. All of that is articulated in the zoning, and that zoning will go through the same process as this station area plan has gone through, in that it will come to the city council the planning commission for a review and a public hearing, and before that we will likely have a public meeting to introduce the zoning to the public and help explain how it correlates with the plan that was adopted, and answer questions and address concerns. And then it will, as a legislative item where we're amending the code to add this, it will come to you, and then you'll make a recommendation to the city council. Included with the zoning will be design guidelines that actually address the specific architectural expression of these buildings to make sure that we get it right, that they really do, as we mentioned in the earlier in the presentation, express Springville's identity and values through the architectural expression here. I love Charleston or Boston, but Springville's not Charleston or Boston, and we want this place to look like Springville. So that's a lot of what the design guidelines will help us accomplish, as well as specifying objective measures to make sure that the right types of materials and other things are used to make sure that we have a place that keeps getting more valuable over the years instead of one that decreases in value or becomes a liability in the future. Then we do this fun thing, which we've talked a little bit about with you with the Lakeside plan, is a developer will submit a regulating plan, which is the tool when we have a form-based code to actually come in and say, okay, this is where I'm going to put the streets, this is where I'm going to put the specific subzones, and this is where the alleys go, and exactly where I'm putting the parks and all of that. It basically locks down all the specifics onto the ground. Once a regulating plan is adopted, then they can actually come in for their subdivision plat and say, okay, here are the lots. after we approve the subdivision plat and they get all of their infrastructure and streets in, then they can come in and get a building permit. For information, we anticipate that the first place that we will see get to the building permit stage is most likely north of 400 south of Center Street on the Erkenbracken-Scoville property. There's a home builder there that's under contract on that property and would like to move pretty immediately after the plan and the zoning is in place. The majority of the rest of the property is owned by Property Reserve, Inc. and Land Reserve, which as the development and real estate investment arms of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are what we call more patient. So there's a reason we have a donut hole of land here that hasn't ever developed. It's because there's very little holding costs for the owner, and they're very patient, which is actually nice that we're able to now know more about the front runner, know more about the market, and be able to make this even better place than I think we could have 20 years ago. So that concludes my presentation about the plan. I'm happy to answer any of your questions prior to the hearing, or answer any questions that you direct me to as you pursue the public hearing or have discussion afterwards.
I know this may come up during the public hearing, but a lot of people have been wondering about taxes and how this would affect property tax or city taxes on them. There's no necessarily known feasibility for what that looks like currently. Is that correct?
I can speak to you the first half of your question. I'm not sure exactly what the second half meant.
Just if there's any known numbers or anything that we could look at that would give us a better idea of what
How
the
it
tax
will- how it
how it
will
will
impact.
affect.
We do not anticipate that this development would have any impact on this ability of the city to provide its existing level of service at its existing property tax rates. The city has been, as you're aware, for the past 3 years, this is the third year, been pursuing a pattern of raising property taxes equal to inflation each year, because we didn't do that for 20 years or more. We're actually have a couple $1 million less purchasing power with our property tax revenue than we did when it started out, because all of you we don't get any more actual absolute dollars from your homes than we did when they were assessed 20 years ago, until we started doing these inflationary increases. So we've had to continue to provide the same fire and police and recreation and all those other services with the same amount of cash dollars, which has had a substantially less buying power. So for this area, all of the utilities are in place. It's not going to create, for Hunter's benefit, kind of a development Ponzi scheme. This, I think, that Chuck Marone would give us the stamp of approval on this.
Yeah.
We're not relying on income from this development to cover our operations, development fees to cover operations or to cover utilities. We're actually in the position where development here will actually pay back our impact fee funds and help us be a little more solvent there. We put in a lot of infrastructure here at our expense ahead of development, and it's been a long time that we've been carrying those expenditures. And for example, like the sewer plant, we did a extensive overhaul and expansion of the sewer plant in the late aughts, and then development all but evaporated in Springville. So the sewer operating budget has had to essentially subsidize that that debt service for the bond that we use to pay for the expansion of the sewer plant. We're not in the habit of doing that anymore, so really this project puts us in a better financial position because it helps us fulfill some of the obligations we undertook anticipating this development.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer. We don't anticipate that, there isn't baked in nor planned, nor do we anticipate that any development that we would permit in our city would create a need for us to increase everyone's tax burden.
Sorry, go ahead. And with a plan like this, Josh, in your opinion, do the city services become more or less efficient than what it would happen if it were a typical residential subdivision come in?
That's a really good question. It depends on which service you talk about. Basically, everything that is like a wet or dry utility becomes far more efficient because we can serve
Water?
water. Sorry, thanks. Help me get out. Avoid the jargon. Water,
Water,
sewer, pressurized irrigation, stormwater, power. All those things are much less expensive to provide if we have more value per acre of private property than less. So if we getting water to a 15,000 square foot lot subdivision, it costs a lot more per lot than it does here, and it's unlikely that the tax revenue from those lots in that situation provide us enough income over time to replace that infrastructure when it's needed. But here, way more customers, way more bang for your buck. In terms of recreation and public safety, recreation,
Hard to measure.
it's hard to measure. Public safety, on the one hand, there's things are closer together, so we may, instead of annexing out west towards the lake and building this equivalent amount of units out there, it's much easier to serve them here, where we're closer to our existing facilities, both for fire, EMS, and police. But there will be more of that in the same place. We don't anticipate, and the data doesn't show us that there's a big difference in the burden on public safety or on fire and EMS in developments like this. So you could say, although it's less easy to say than for the utility, you could say that this is more efficient because we can then alternately doing the same amount of something in a different place.
Yeah.
For streets, it's much better because we don't have to build new streets. They're primarily already there. We already have 1200 West, a 5-lane arterial, 4 South, 5-lane arterial. We already have all the big streets around here that are ready and have been planned to handle this for 20 plus years. So it's really like we've just been planning and waiting, and we spent all the money and we're just waiting for the development to show up.
Okay, Director Rios, my comment is more of a comment than a question. As I was listening to this, and if we choose to, I mean, if the Planning Commission choose to recommend we move forward with this plan, we've had a lot of discussion ad nauseum over the last few years on some residential areas that are similar to this, Westfield. I know it's not called Lakeside Landing or whatever it's called down there.
That's right. You're right.
It is still called that. Okay, we've had so many discussions on how to make sure that these residences are friendly to everyone around, right? And friendly not only to people that want to ride their bikes and walk around that area, but people who already live there. And I guess I would just encourage you and your excellent team as you move forward with this, if we choose to recommend we move forward, to really go back and look at those conversations we've had and those key learnings that came as a result of those conversations and how we work with our citizens. I mean, we have so many citizens here. By the way, thank you all for coming and taking the time out of your busy schedules. Whatever side of the issue you're on, thank you for being here. But I would just encourage us to make sure that we really draw from those key learnings and don't try to reinvent the wheel as we move forward on this. So.
And I know it was a comment, but as a somewhat of a response,
right?
One of the biggest things we've focused on as we're starting to kind of look at the zoning for this area is that we make sure that the transitions to existing homes are really good. And by good, I mean
it looks great on
that it's the same character across your back fence. There's very few places where we're going to be in anybody's. Actually, there's no places we'll be in anybody's backyard, but we'll be across the street or across 12th West or across Center Street or across 9th South. We don't have like a property line to property line like we did in Westfields, but making sure that those setbacks, those building heights are equal to the surrounding, and that we start tapering that up on the new side of the line instead of immediately at the line, like at Westfield Central, that adjacency on the east side of the project. If we would have adjusted that so those were just deep lots with an alley at the back and a garage at the back, I think we would have resolved one of the biggest concerns with kind of the immediate neighbors there. And we're focusing a lot on that to make sure that transition from you're already here to the new stuff is really seamless.
Right, and that was all my comment was, make sure we learn from what we've experienced in the past few years. That's all I have.
Hey, Josh, so are the impact fees we talked about, are they recoupable by the state statute? Will they let us,
Oh, yes, we can charge impact fees. They can buy into existing capacity forever. So if we have existing capacity in the system that we haven't received impact fees to pay for, that we invested in ahead of time, yes.
So we can create that. Okay.
Yes, all of our existing impact fee facility plans and studies, analyses, take into account the existing capacity and calculate that into the impact fee. So we will recoup a lot of impact fees impact fee project expenses that have already been spent by getting impact fees from this project that won't necessarily go to be building new facilities, but they'll be buying into and paying the city back for existing facilities.
So a developer that comes in and builds X number of homes has to pay into that
Correct.
existing system in the impact fees so
Correct.
that the citizens aren't taking care of that and adding to that.
Correct.
So I think that's an important part of, okay.
Yeah, impact fees make sure that our existing residents, our existing property owners, businesses don't foot the bill for the cost of providing those new utilities to new development.
Sewer plants, water lines,
Correct.
anything of that stuff.
Correct. And also for clarity, we have, at least as it's currently set up, we only have one impact fee area for each of our impact fees. So every development pays the same, in the city pays the same impact fee per equivalent residential unit, which is kind of our apples to apples measuring tool for development. Thanks.
That's all I had, thanks.
Has there been any traffic analysis to
Yes.
this?
There's been a pretty extensive sub-model, or kind of off. I don't know. Do you know anything about traffic analysis? The short answer is yes.
Okay.
To the point where we had MAG kind of pushing back and say, the model doesn't get fine enough to tell you whether 7th South or 9th South is a better crossing. Like, yeah, I understand that. I'm well aware of how much I dislike traffic modeling generally.
Yeah.
But yes, we've done it. None of the surrounding intersections fail, and we do see a couple thousand trips a day move to or appear on 9th South in between 1750 West and 1200 West. So that it did warrant, we were able to show a need, and that it made sense to really push for that connection as part of the Frontrunner project.
Okay. I'm more just trying to think about questions I know that some of these people are going to have.
Yeah, great.
As far as the public safety goes, I know a lot of people have concern about, with Frontrunner arriving here, what the public safety aspect would be to that, in terms of how, now that we're connected to other communities, that we're also connected to other communities that way. Has there been any study or analysis of how that would affect? Because I know it is, under my personal knowledge and studying, it could be considered a myth or an item that is inflated, I guess would be a better way to put it, in terms of whether the crime increases or not at a transit station. Has there been any thought or study to that as part of this station area plan?
Not specific to this station area plan, because we are taking the Frontrunner facility as a given. We're not in the position to the fact that Frontrunner's coming isn't a question, or it is. The question is just when now, and my hope is before the Olympics. But there's a couple things that factor into that. One is, what is the environment immediately around the station? Where you have stations that came into areas, especially in Salt Lake County, which were existing kind of industrial areas or underdeveloped areas, those stations often had a higher rate of those things happening because there wasn't people around, there were empty properties, the people at a park and ride, there just is nothing around. But like in the first one in Murray that I worked on, there was nothing around the park and ride except an empty field, an old mining equipment storage place, and a foam block factory. So with less surveillance and less activity, there is less of a what's the word when you when
That's an opportunity.
there's not as much discouragement towards criminal activity, but the situation of the station on the line also has an impact. And again, I want to clarify that there's not really a strong nexus between now we're connected and we might have unhoused or people that rely on transit more coming here and an increase in crime. That correlation is weak. But where we're not at the end of the line, that makes a difference. And where we will have very good public spaces and development right at the transit station, it's not surrounded by a big sea of parking. It's not in an old industrial area. It's really greenfield where we can do all of the things that we know how to do from a design standpoint. With here's your last planning adjective for the night, CPTED, CPDED, crime prevention through environmental design, essentially making the place uncomfortable for people to be there that shouldn't be there, and making it an active and observed spot where it increases the likelihood that we're going to have a safe public realm. So no, there hasn't been any specific analysis, but generally in terms of transit facilities, some of the big drivers are what's the environment around the station, and is it an end of the line station, and what type of services are available at that point. So we're not the end of the line station, and we have the opportunity to come in and design a really great station area which will be full of all the people who want to be there all the time.
Right. Josh, is it possible that we would be an end-of-the-line station for a number of years as
No.
it's being developed? It will
No,
go straight through.
I'm sorry I said that was your last abbreviation, but LOS in transit planning is least operable segment. So that it's essentially, what is the smallest piece we can build and operate that makes sense? That is all the way to Payson, because to get to Springville, you have to get over from the north or from the south side of the rail or west side of the rail to the east side of the rail. So there's going to be a very big, expensive overpass. You have to build a new rail car maintenance facility, which we're hoping to be able to fit here in Springville somewhere, and you have to do the connection of the Tintic line down at 1600 South to get rid of that diagonal line that runs through the West Fields and connect the line to the north to that one. So that diagonal line is the one that goes down to Payson, so we have to get from one to the other. So there's a lot of expensive stuff just to get to Springville, and it doesn't make sense from a federal funding perspective and from the way we analyze the ridership potential of transit to just build to Springville. So the project is Provo to Payson.
So I think my question was, will we have to put up with it being the last stop for a number of years
No.
while this is being developed?
No, it will
go all at once.
It will go all at once. The service will not begin on the line until
It's done.
the project will be all of it at one time. Yes.
Hey, Josh, just real quick, I'm going to tag on to my buddy's comment here about public safety. I would like to, I know you said some great stuff, but I would like to see our public safety director get engaged with this stuff.
He's
And-
engaged.
Okay, good. But not only engaged, but I think it would be worth doing analysis on similar stops to
Yes.
Springville, and then once that analysis has been done, as part of the plan, I'd love to see the public safety director
Right.
put his piece in here so that we can read about the plans, making sure that it's uncomfortable for a seedier element to be, not to be there. We don't want them there, and,
Right.
and you said that there would be eyes on, so they wouldn't be there. I'd love to see that in the plan.
Yeah, that would be great. Obviously I'll wait for your motion, but that's probably something that would,
We can add that to the motion.
you could, but it would probably be something that would likely take a while for us to actually get you something that was
Concrete.
concrete or that was substantial enough to be meaningful, and where we're
But
still.
You said he's been engaged, so how?
Well, yes.
If he's been engaged, I would think he's at least got some sort of a plan.
So Lance Haight is our police
Yes.
chief and our director of public safety.
Right.
He spent the entirety of his public safety career before coming here as
Right.
a BART officer.
Right. Yep.
So when we say commuter rail station, he prickles up and says, "Oh boy," and we're
Yeah.
like, "This isn't Oakland, chief. This is not Oakland." But he's, "Oh, bad stuff happens on BART." I'm like, "Yes, we're aware." So we've had a lot of discussions of how can we take his very legitimate concern and tailor it to our local conditions, and what things can we do to help plan for some of the liabilities that may come as part of the system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's great, but again, he's the public safety director.
Right.
And I would push him to be the guy.
Right, and that's what we're
who's
pushing.
bringing in those pieces. You're not trying to figure those
No.
pieces out because he's concerned,
right.
you know?
I mean, I'm not ignoring it, but it's his specialty.
Yeah, but he needs to bring it to you.
Yeah.
So that he feels some accountability for that, and you're not feeling accountability for developing the public safety plan that goes into this.
Right. We can respond with the planning tools
Sure.
to the things he cites,
Sure,
but
sure.
Well, that'll come more into effect when, like, the specific zoning and the design standards and those things are worked on, correct?
yes, there'll be more provisions, more specific provisions that we can actually do in terms of how it actually looks specifically on the ground in the zoning. But what will actually be probably most important is that as we work with UTA and the primary property owner there to design the immediate environment around the transit station, the public plaza, the sidewalks, the underpass, the overpass, all those type of things, that we will really be one of the people in the decision-making team for those, that we have the information then so we can make sure we don't miss anything on the plaza or the platform or the overpasses, underpasses, those types of places. So that's really where will be the most key, is how we design the immediate area right around the.
But tonight is more just land use, or?
It's vision, but it's absolutely proper to be considering, how do we address public safety and public welfare in the visioning. It's part of your.
That's what I was
No,
going to say,
no, I'm
Genevieve.
not saying not-
I mean, even if this is 30,000 feet still, we still need a 30,000-foot view of public safety.
I was not actually commenting on the public safety part of it. I was just trying to understand, like, we're at the stage we're at right now is more the land use.
It's land
General
use,
plan,
transportation,
land use. Yeah.
design, the whole range of things, just at a high level. So we're thinking about utilities, we're thinking about streets, we're thinking about buildings, not just land use blobs, but we're thinking about them in general principles, not specific regulatory rules.
So is it gonna be more like an overlay kind of thing?
The zoning?
But the land use is gonna stay village, what is it, village commercial, or? I'm just trying to, like, put it in a frame of reference of, like, the general plan
Okay,
has
so the general
this,
plan.
and then we have specific zoning and that
Right,
kind of
so
thing.
essentially the general plan for this area, specifically, the best place to look for the land use plan for this area is is this map, which is
That.
the Westfields Community Plan, which says, which says generally there's a village core here, and we get less intense residential moving north and south from it, and that there's commercial over here.
And generally, we have
Big categories. And
Generally,
generally,
yeah.
we're following this except for introducing some residential in this corner. That's really-
and I'm just talking about what's built out currently as well.
Oh, yes, what's built out currently generally follows this, other than we really didn't end up with
Medium
apartments in this area, which it really called for, but we did end up with which may qualify as medium high with some parts of the Westfield Central, which is right in this location, but a lot of these, some of this other areas of the medium high, we just didn't get there. And then we also have some medium high in some other places just because of the way the Westfields overlay works. But this is essentially the existing map, and then this map here becomes the new high-level map saying it's most intense in the middle and it tapers off to the north and south, and we have commercial over here with some residential here. And then the zoning will actually come in and say, these are the rules for accomplishing this thing. This is how you do a Res 10 and a Res 20 and a mixed-use commercial. This is exactly the size and the setbacks and the kind of materials and how wide the street is and how many parking stalls you need for everything. And all of those regulations come in at the zoning, and they go through that regulating plan and subdivision process.
So we're going to be using this plan and supplementing on top of the previous plan that had.
Yeah, this essentially supersedes,
supersedes
for
it.
this area, supersedes what's in the 2002 Westfields Community Plan. And then the zoning, then we adopt the zoning this informs the creation of the zoning.
Director Yost, question. Throughout your planning, and I know there's been many years of this planning, what has been the greatest point of friction and concern with the project?
I think of friction as being between, you gotta have like two things rubbing against each other to have friction. So if let's say I'm one of those things, who or what is the other thing? And it's a different answer depending on who you say.
I suppose I'm asking is what is the greater concern that, I mean, people here tonight want to talk about this.
So people here,
Yeah.
it's probably, this is different than what I thought was going to be here. These are fields. They're beautiful. I didn't move in here to be next to a front runner station and the high density residential that comes along with it. And then I'm worried about the way that will affect the value of my property and the quality of my life and what has been my life for however long I've lived here. That this is a change, and it's pretty dramatic, especially if people weren't aware of the planning we'd already done. There's clearly always concern about traffic. How's this going to impact traffic? 1750 West is probably one of our most troublesome, larger kind of arterial collector streets. It was designed and built before we had our current street standards adopted, so it is a little too wide. It doesn't have good wide enough park strips. The roundabout at 9th South isn't really a roundabout. It's kind of a glorified traffic circle. So there's a lot of things on 1750 West that continue to need work and are reflected on our transportation plan. Internally, there's friction about that statement I showed at the first that said it's streets for everybody, but prioritizing pedestrian and bicycles. That's not always the prioritization that the engineering or public works bases their work on. With administration and public and kind of our elected officials, with the mayor earlier in this process, there was somewhat of a push from the consultant and the UTA side to do substantially more density. Earlier this year, we were at a point where we were around 2,000 units, and we just communicated that that's not within the realm of what we've planned for and are comfortable with here. So there's the height and intensity development have led to internal friction. But we took this plan through one last loop through our development review committee, where people from every department in the city review it and then come to a meeting together to discuss the plan, express concerns, request any changes. And at the end of that meeting, we essentially got a thumbs up from all of the internal reviewing departments, and it comes to you, and I should have mentioned this, it comes to you with support of the development review committee. Hopefully there's nobody lingering out there that feels resentful that something moved forward that they didn't like, because everybody had eyes on it. But those are the two categories of friction, and I'm sure I'm missing something because I can't adequately, summarize the concerns of everybody that's here in the room.
Essentially, it already exists in a version.
Yes, it
It
is.
already exists in a version. This is just a tweak to that version to better designate green space and.
Yes, this is an update that, from my perspective, will provide a better outcome. It does make some changes, like we mentioned on the west side of the rail, but it is not markedly different from what, in terms of the raw numbers of what you could get out of the current planning and the current zoning.
So if, we were to recommend not to adopt this, we would still have the village commercial and
Correct.
still have the density situation that exists currently, because that was approved.
Correct. That's
20
already on
years
the
ago.
books. That's
Yeah.
the developers could come in
So
and
this
do
is
that.
our chance to better tweak it
Mhm.
and
Yes.
update it for modern time.
Yes.
So Josh, I just have a question about the number of houses
Mhm.
that are there. Is there a requirement or a threshold that we have to do around the station?
No.
Or can we decrease the amount?
We can increase, decrease the amount. The station area plan law does not specify we have to hit a threshold. What we do have to hit the point at which we do have to hit a threshold is if we want to employ a state program called, Carla, help me with what the acronym actually stands for. Housing Transit Reinvestment Zone, which is essentially a tax increment area that can be used in the area. To reach that, we have to have a certain number of acres that yields a net 50 units to the acre. We are not proposing that because we didn't feel it was consistent with Springville, essentially with our identity and what we had planned for in this area. So that's the only case in which we have to meet a threshold, and since we're not proposing an HTRZ area, there is not a threshold. We just have to show that we are making provisions for providing housing and providing a range of housing, and in tandem with all of the strategies we've adopted in our modern income housing plan, I feel confident that we've met the mandate in the state law.
That, meaning the affordable housing, they don't say that has to have so many
No,
units.
they don't.
But of what we put there, we need to have a certain number
No.
or percentage or
No.
anything of.
I actually had some people come in that live in these townhomes over here and say, how are you going to guarantee that some of these are actually affordable? And I said, despite the state's concern that we do that, they've prohibited some tools that could make that easier for us to force a developer to do. So we're still working through, in general, how we can make sure that this area does actually have some units that somebody like me could buy instead of a 1,400 square foot townhome for $450,000, which is apparently the new threshold for affordable, but it still. I guess I'm stuck in high school because I look back and say, yeah, that Pareto Homes house in the Dairy in Murray, that was $450,000, and that was a house. And now I'm like, starter house with laminate and carpet for. So There isn't a mandate. There's not a mixed mandate. We can't actually mandate on private development without using development agreement or others that there is a certain percentage that's called inclusive zoning. That's the state generally prohibits that. But we are working through in the zoning how we may be able to do some of that, but there's not a mandate, and this plan doesn't. The only thing this plan mentions is the necessity of having moderate income housing in an HTRZ if we have one, but we're not proposing to have one.
Okay, I see.
This might be an ignorant question, but I just don't know. Does the city have the ability to regulate whether or not these are rental?
No.
No.
We do not have the ability to regulate the form of ownership. You can rent your house, and somebody can build an apartment building or a condo building. That's, not something we can regulate.
I assume that was the case. Thank you.
So is there some sort of formula that you use to say this is how many we want to put there?
How many
How
of
many residencies, how many homes, how many townhouses?
I usually don't start with the number because the number is very abstract and has very little relationship to what it looks like or what it feels like. I typically start with what type of housing do we want in this area? What kind of boxes do we want that housing to go in? Because the number is going to be totally different. And we say, we're comfortable. Like Salt Lake just changed the zoning in Sugar House, and I think the new maximum height is 160 feet, and you go up to 190 with some bonuses. So if you say, we're comfortable with a 150-foot tall box, then our number is going to be 50 plus. But if we say, hey, we're really not comfortable with anything taller than 4 stories, and we want it in this area, I'm less concerned with whether there's a bunch of 1,200 square foot apartments in that box, or there's 2,000 square foot apartments in that box. But once we've gone through that, we want to make sure that the number that comes out of the analysis of what we want it to look like and feel like and what kind of housing we want there, that can be supported by the infrastructure. That our roads are sufficient, our water and sewer are sufficient. So here we basically said we want stuff at the edges that feels like what's already there, and in the middle we want to get up to 4 stories mixed use. And the number that comes out of the back end of that is that 1,300 number.
I know you've talked about your traffic study, but if you consider just the traffic in and out of there of the people who live there, what happens when I go to pick someone up at the station and you have multiple people coming in to pick up other people who may have just arrived or whatever? So I don't know how your traffic study works, but I see a lot of movement.
Yes, the traffic study didn't and really doesn't have the ability to get at that level because it's running on the regional model. But what UTA will do and has already done in the preliminary engineering and designs they've done for the area is show, based on their 25 years of history with Frontrunner and tracks, how the buses serve the station, how they call the Kiss and Ride loop serves the station, and with access to both sides of the platform, we're really excited that we'll be able to distribute that. So we won't just have everyone on one side, but if you're like commuting and you're perhaps parking in a parking garage, you may go to the other side of the platform, or we have multiple places for the buses to approach. So yes, UTA has modeled, and this is something they do even before the point we are now, they've modeled what they anticipate to be ridership initially and over time, and what amount of that ridership comes by different modes. How much of that may come on bus, how much of that may be people living there, how much of that is drop-offs or commuter parking, and they size their facilities and the access to their facilities to accommodate that.
I have another question.
Okay.
So as far as like, lot sizes are much smaller than what typically people are used to seeing.
Once we get into the inside of the area, yes.
Right. And this is it's a comment and a question. I know land equals value, so the larger the land, the more expensive that house is going to become. So is this a specific strategy that the city is taking in terms of trying to provide phase of life housing for future or current residents, to where now my kids now have the ability to be able to go buy and live in Springville. Is that part of the strategy here?
Phase of life, yes, in that we will have a lot of different types of houses all next to each other. Like if Brent wanted to move to a single story house with,
Main level living. He's
you've
getting-
got to go pretty far to do that. If you wanted a condo, you're not going to be in your neighborhood that you've been in for 25 years or however long you've been there. This area will go a long way to addressing the affordability,
Yeah, it's unknown.
Yeah.
Welcome to Utah.
because there's very much a idea that I think many people at the state have, that increased density equals increased affordability, and that is not an accurate correlation.
Right.
The most expensive homes in Utah on a per square foot basis are in condo towers in City Creek.
Yeah.
Some of the most expensive homes we've seen in the West Fields have been on the smallest lots. When I saw Lafferty Homes build a 3,200 square foot cottage on a 3,000 square foot lot and sell it for $678,000, I kind of gave up any lingering idea that I had that if we just provide smaller lots, people will build cheaper houses.
Well, and that-
There's some amount of correlation, but it's not a reliable strategy to drive affordability.
And that's more where the comment comes in as part of the question, in terms of, as we get to the zoning and regulation portion of this plan, I would hope that we would be able to regulate to some degree a maximum allowable building footprint, but
Yes.
also a living square footage.
That's what
allowed.
we did in Lakeside, actually.
Right, and so, because I think that will speak more to the attainability, but also like, we won't see what happened at Westfields, when those lots that are 3 stories tall are technically a cottage lot, and when I hear cottage lot, it's maximum 2 stories.
Right. 3 bedrooms if it's a big cottage.
But the code at that time allowed a 3-story
Right.
structure, and so,
And Tom said, well, if I knew people were going to do that, and I said, well, welcome to Utah.
right, welcome to Utah. And so, I think there's that aspect that I think we need to address, but I also think where this plan starts to come into play is the fact that, and this is more, I guess, for everyone here too, like, I know that census data showing that 60% of the US is now married, no kids, or single-family household type. So they don't have children.
Yeah.
They're a non-typical family.
Even our household size is continuing to
And-
decrease,
and so
not insubstantially.
Because of that, I mean, I can't relate. I got 5 kids. They're not.
You know how that works, right?
Yeah. So I think so far, from the zoomed out view, this starts to address that attainability.
Yes, that we have many more single and
help-
2-person
help. It-
homes.
Depends
We're-
on,
we're
depends on
aiming.
investors, right? Who
Yeah.
come in
Well,
and
right.
say,
The only thing we can do as a city is aim,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I think we should let people speak too, because then we'll have better comments. And we can, because we can still discuss this
Yeah.
after they have the chance, but I think it would be helpful to hear what they have to say, and
Can I ask one last question?
You have to
This
fight
will
Ralph
help
for
me
it.
going forward.
you're good. yeah.
Sorry,
You're-
just one
you're
more, Ralph,
always
just
good,
one
Ann.
more.
You're
I'm
okay.
still hung
Okay,
up on
Ralph.
traffic over here. So say I buy a home in here.
Mm-hmm.
When I come into this area, am I coming in on 1750 West or am I coming in on 950 West? How am I coming in off 400?
It depends on where you want to come.
Okay, but
It's all everything on the east side is all connected, so you could come on 950 and come across 7th or 9th.
what's it I'm just looking
So
up.
here's Smith's.
Right, I see Smith's. So
Here's the rec center. Here's Meadowbrook. Here's Westfield Central Park. So you could turn at 950 and then come across on 7th or come across on 950. You could come in on 12th West.
And so I guess
Whoops.
my question is, obviously you must have talked about development that takes in along there and what that might look like with traffic or whatever might be created on
Yes.
either side of that.
That's one reason why 1200 West is a 5-lane road. One, to carry kind of regional traffic from Spanish Fork to Provo, but also to be the arterial grid in the area so people can get from their smaller neighborhood streets to a bigger street and then out to 400 South efficiently. So that's why we kind of have that grid of 7th West, which will eventually have a light on it, 950 West, 12th West, 1750 West, so that there's lots of connections across there.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions then? Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so we will open up the public hearing. And when you come forward, please make sure you state your name, your address. Keep your comments to under 3 minutes. And if the comment has already been made and argued, then try not to repeat the same arguments.
And that was 3 minutes, not 30.
Yeah.
But I heard 32.
My name is Bill Forbes. I live at 1602 Renaissance Way, which is 920 south. So we back up to 900. So we have a lot of concern about what's going on there. I appreciate, Brett, your comment about taking care of the existing residents, because up to your comment for the first 45 minutes, there was one comment that mentioned existing residents. Before that, that wasn't even talked about. It was all about the new. So I appreciate that. The other comment that I want to make before I get into some of the ones that I've prepared was that when we moved here 8 years ago, I called into the building, I called into the city, asked for the building planning commission. And I asked the question, is there anything on the books for this property right now? And now that I see that this plan was made in 2002, I don't want to say I was lied to, but I wasn't told the truth. Because we were told there was absolutely nothing on the books that was going to happen to this property. And obviously, that had been in place for 15 years at that time. So that's a major issue and a concern that I have. I'm going to read a lot of my comments just to get through them faster. And I understand a lot has been said tonight, a lot of updates, things that we didn't get. A lot of my comments and perhaps other people's comments are going to be based upon what we heard at the September 4th meeting, because we haven't heard and seen a lot of this stuff. So I apologize if there is some repetition in that concern. So some of the concerns that we have is going to be the bridge at 900. That's one of the bigger ones that we have. And if any of you lived on the street we live on and realized that right behind your house they're going to build a bridge, you wouldn't be really happy about it. We're not very happy about it. There's a number of things. One is foundation of our homes. As they start building that bridge and they start putting in the pylons to build a bridge on that street, that's going to affect the foundation. The foundation of homes in our area that are close to the railroad tracks. You can see foundation cracks. You can see issues with foundations just because of the freight trains that go by. Now you put all this stuff going on and you put traffic on this road, it's going to affect our homes, and we're concerned about that. Another thing we're concerned about is the water table. Our area was built on a very high water table, and a couple of years ago, 25 homes in a 2-block area flooded because of that. And it was our understanding that basements, even crawl spaces, should not have been built, but they were. One of the issues that I would like to bring up is liability for all of this that's happening should there be any damage to our homes due to it. Because all of the contractors that built in our area are either bankrupt or gone. There is no way for us to get back at them. The city is not taking any responsibility for anything. And we can emphasize this by looking at our rec room building that has the pool in it, which is now condemned because it wasn't built properly. And of course, the flooding, building in the high water. And so we're concerned about going north, putting in solid roads, sidewalks, homes, and putting in solid surfaces, that's not gonna allow water to evaporate. And where's it gonna go? And I've been told by Josh that the current field flows from south to north, so it is flowing away from our home. However, they're irrigating, from what I understand, from north to south. And so I'm not sure how the water's running uphill. And so I'm concerned about the water table issue. And when they start building and they start digging over there. In regards to the bridge, one of our questions is, why cannot it be put at 700 South? There is no residential there now. There would be no effect to the existing homes. People that have been there for 20 years or longer. And that was kind of addressed like, oh, you know, I didn't know this was gonna happen 20 years ago. But now all of a sudden, there's an opportunity to put an unsightly, high-traffic bridge away from the residential, and then build something else by that bridge, whether it be a park, whether it be commercial, whatever it might be, instead of putting that on a road that's 10 feet away from my property. And how do we keep our property private? How do we, people are driving up on that bridge are gonna be looking into our backyards, are gonna be looking into our home. That's an issue. If you look at the construction that, for 1600, the bridge that's going on 1600 South, that's been going on for 2 years, 3 years, I don't know what the time frame is, but a very long time. It's not done, won't be done for a while. The dirt, the dust, the noise, all of that has been going on down there. And if that's what it takes to build a bridge behind our houses, we're gonna be facing that for years to come. And all kinds of noise. And then light pollution, there's gonna be some light pollution, and there's not much we can probably do about that. But when they start putting in streetlights and people start putting lights on their homes that you know, our backyard lights and stuff, we're gonna have a lot of light pollution that's gonna be going on with construction that's going on there. So those are some of the issues that I wanted to address. And then traffic has been addressed. It is a major, major hazard. If you look on the traffic map, the traffic accident map, you will see that 1750 west at 400 south and 400 south going over the bridge to 950 is one of the highest accident areas in the entire city. And we're gonna be adding 1,300 homes worth of people that are gonna be going into 1750. And it is dangerous. And I have experienced 4 times nearly being hit on a bicycle because people coming out of the current commercial streets, whether it be the bank, whether it be Walmart, whether it be any of those, access to 1750, they don't stop because traffic is so heavy. They just look and go. And I nearly get hit on my bike 4 times in the this summer because people are just in a hurry to go.
Do you have more items on your list that you want to go through quickly?
Let me see if there is.
Been quite.
One of the questions that I had in the zoning is that presumably 950s are, 900 is going to be built because that's going to be an access. Okay, is there going to be any kind of a buffer zone between our home and the street, or the street and whatever development there is to the north of the street? Is there a buffer zone? Is there a park? Is there anything that's gonna buffer the noise from there? So the question there. See, liability I talked about, and traffic I talked about. So I had a few more items, but some of them have been discussed, and I want to give other people time.
Yes,
So
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
taking
your
the time.
comments.
Christine Kidder, I live at 503 West, 350 South, Unit B. I'm glad to hear there's an impact bucket. What I have not heard addressed is schools. I've been visiting here for over 10 years, and I just moved here in March. I have 3 children at Merritt, one at Reagan, so I don't know about the other schools, but we're bringing in a number of people. So how is this going to impact, and what schools is it going to impact?
Thank you very much.
Sorry, am I?
She was just right behind you. You're fine. No worries.
Hi, my name is Stephen Stoley. My wife and I live at 1195 West, 200 South. So we're going to be greatly impacted by that potential through road from 400 South that's supposed to be connecting northern and southern Springville. And we met with Josh, and from the sounds of it, that road is also supposed to potentially, or at least in the end game is to have that road connect Spanish Fork and Provo, essentially turning it into, our view, a mini State Street. I bought the home before my wife and I were married back in June 2015, and I bought it for 3 reasons, one of them being that road had some semblance of privacy. We have 2 children, and the fact that I think from the side of our townhome to the road it's about 30 feet. But the fact that this has been in place for 20 plus years, and this just kind of got dumped on us about a month ago, and we've heard absolutely zero about this. You know, at least I haven't in the past 10 years that I've been living here. Seems really, really unfair to us, considering, you know, like, I don't know how many other townhomes are going to be impacted the way we are, but it just seems kind of ridiculous to us that the development was built the way it is, where we have townhomes on the end where there's very little opportunity to build any kind of privacy fence, what have you. Josh reviewed with us the codes for fencing, and a fence on our property, even if it was permitted by our HOA, just isn't going to do a whole lot to increase or give us the amount of privacy that we have right now, as well as there's the impact of noise pollution that's going to come from cars on the road. And so, that's our main concern. And my wife and I, like, our big ask is that if this plan is approved, we don't want people zipping down that road 35 miles an hour. Like, I know that 2-lane, there's 2 roads. One goes north and one goes south. That's just north of us. On 1200 near the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that's kind of like built north of center around 1200. And one goes north and one goes south. And I'll be honest, there's like nothing on those roads that would impede drivers from going above the posted speed limit, whatever that is right now. And so my wife and I would make the ask that if this road goes through, that there's some sort of mechanism. Josh referred to them as, I think he said, bump outs. That there's some sort of mechanism that would cause drivers to slow down, simply because we are very concerned for the safety of our 2 children. We plan to have one more, and our little boy, he loves to play in that yard. So that would just be our main ask. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Hi, my name is Jeanette McElroy. I live at 1728 Renaissance Way. My backyard backs up 900 South. I guess I'm lucky because my backyard is not going to have a bridge behind it. This makes me sad. This isn't the Springville we moved to when we came from California. All the council was voted in because they told us, not you guys, the city council, slow growth. This isn't slow growth. This is ridiculous. I have 3 issues, quickly. Traffic. online, Painting Tomorrow's Springville 2045. Josh has a thing from it, Cody Ferguson, PhD. Forgive me, I hate public speaking. Page 7, Springville Transportation Master Plan. I don't have time to read it all, but it talks about the projected growth to 58,000 people by 2040. The last line of this paragraph states, these recommendations are limited to adding roadway and intersection capacity and do not evaluate the impact of prescribed projects on the overall quality of life in the city, placemaking goals, or other urban design and or safety considerations. On page 9 of this same document, Springville Transportation Plan by the Mountain Land Association of Governments, MAG, that Josh has referred to. The Safety Action Plan, they say, is part of a regional plan. It is to develop a plan to address rising crash rates in the MAG region. We're talking about Utah County, we're talking Summit County and Wasatch counties under this MAG plan that they've gone into. In Springville, the plan noted that the primary crash hotspots are along 400 South at Main, 400 South at 1750 West, and 400 South at 950 West. On the city's website, all you have to do is look at the maps, and you will see how sickening our traffic has gotten. And we're being asked as a community to be happy about 1,300 more separate units in a very, very small area. I've written down off of your map, I have 597 accidents on 1750 West just since they've been doing this. We have 235 just on 950 West, and all this incorporating 400 South. So it's 400 South, 400 or 1750 West to 950 West. We have almost 800 accidents, one fatal. And we're being asked to say that it's okay that 1,300 more units are being brought to our area? I want to cry. When we bought our home 20 years ago, we knew there was talk of apartments, there was talk of Front Runner. I'm happy for Front Runner. My husband's disabled, we can hop on Front Runner and we can go. I have no problem with Front Runner. I have a problem with the traffic. We can't even get out onto 400 South to access the freeway without sitting through 2 or 3 lights on 1750, approaching 400 South. Long before 1,300 more units come in. 2 people each unit, we're looking at 2,600 more people. Our area is swampland. We found this out from old real estate people that grew up in Springville. We've had no less than 20 homes' basements flood in heavy rains. It fills up the aquifers, it fills up the springs from Springville, and floods our homes. Basements should not have been allowed. Basements were allowed. Salisbury was the only decent person who built 2 streets in the middle of Camelot, and he didn't put basements. He listened. He did split level homes, but he listened. He didn't do basements. Well, now, our developer, long gone, bankrupt, gone. The city allowed him to do this. Will the city accept anything with this? Of course not. Of course you won't. Mr. Penrod came after the all of Camelot community when Wayne Ross bailed on you guys, and he bailed on us. The city came after us for thousands of dollars because the city didn't have all their monies ahead of time. Who knows what the developer thought. The city has not been fair to Camelot. And now my dear neighbors are having to look at a 25 or 30-foot wall in their backyard and all the ick that goes along with having a major roadway. And I guarantee you, each one of you here, if 900 South is allowed to go over the tracks and over to the east side of the tracks, it will be a major roadway. Are each of you willing to accept the issues that come along with that? It's not just a matter like Yosh said, oh, we don't get to have, a field in our backyard or whatever. No, some of us were told the truth. Some of us weren't. We knew there'd be apartments. We knew there'd be a front runner. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's do it. But let's do it in keeping with our beautiful city. We didn't leave California to come here only to have California chase us down and jump in our backyard. I'm asking you, I'm begging you to reduce the number of units. I'm asking and begging you to please, if there must be a bridge built, build it away from the current homes that exist now. You're still in the planning phases. You can do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
For someone scared of speaking, you do a darn good job. Well, you did well.
Hello, my name is Jeff Hill. We live in, let's see if I can do this house right here on the map. So we're looking at having the giant, it's a big overpass. If you've been down to 1600 and looked at that overpass, it's huge. And having that in our backyard, I'd really rather not have that overpass like she eloquently summarized. I also want to reiterate the point about 400. Is this 400 here? Can't tell.
It's in the center, down
400?
a little bit more. That one.
400.
There you go.
400 is probably the main access for the majority of Springville people. Right now it's overcrowded. You're not putting any other, this is the access to I-15 here. Well, here it is,
Yep.
I-15 there, and I know we've got this other one coming in over here. 1700 is the access there, and then you've got this access here to 400, or yeah, here, sorry, I keep going up. So I don't see any new improved traffic to withstand the 1,300, potential new drivers, or 2,600, or however many it ends up being. But that is not just going to affect us terribly, because our traffic, we started our house with the line to traffic to get into the highway some mornings because it's so backed up there. Accidents and the lights. There's one light there now that basically backs traffic up all the way up past past the circle some days. And then if you add that, and then there's the traffic coming up 400. That's going to be, these people are going to be going to 400 to get onto the highway. So I would like you to take a relook at that traffic survey that you say you've done, because I don't believe it. Oh yeah, thank you for the questions about overcrowding. Please look at a lower number than 1,300 at least for this. I don't mind the train station or any of the buildings, any of that, but if you overcrowd it, it's going to affect everybody in Springville. I don't know why we seem to celebrate bringing more and more and more people in here. It's overcrowded as is. I-15 is backed up all the way some days too. So there's that. I do want to reiterate the groundwater concerns. A lot of the house is flooding because of that groundwater, and this is going to divert some of that underground water probably back at us. Yep, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Valdez. My husband and I live down the same street, Renaissance Way, 1684 Renaissance. And I appreciate you saying that you wanted to blend in the new developments and making the same height and everything. But yet, look at that red commercial right on our street on S41. That's in the backyard of Renaissance. S42 and 43 is at least a 15, which could be a two-story homes. Most of our homes are one-story. I would really appreciate it if you would highly consider those areas that are close to homes that are already there to have a buffer zone, a park, a walkway, a bikeway, something to buffer us from the buildings that are going to ruin my beautiful view, all of our beautiful views and everything else that has been said that. And I don't really know why there has to be a bridge. Why can't people go over to the railway and go up and access it that way from 1750 and from 1200? They could come that way. Both of them could come in and go up to the station or go to that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Carlin Thompson. I live at 1148 West Center Street. I've lived actually in the Westfields when it was the Westfields. Long, on and off my whole life. Mine is just a little bit of a clarification for the actual front runner station, and just making sure if we can put into the plan that there's access and parking on both sides of the railroad tracks, that you can kind of diffuse the park and ride people to both sides of the tracks, so that it doesn't all have to, it looks like it's mostly on the east side, and I think that would, if we could get it on both sides of the track, then I think that would help keep that more of a community focus instead of a large parking structure that people come, leave their cars all day, and then hop in and get home as fast as they can, and they don't actually use it as a community center. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kurt Boucher. I live at 433 North, 700 West. I had the opportunity to work with the city several years ago on the Active Transportation Master Plan as that was designed and implemented. One of the key ingredients of consideration in the Active Transportation Master Plan was this plan that you see before you now, with the upcoming integration of Front Runner, other bus services, and other as a multimodal hub for active transportation. And this has also been, of course, a main consideration for the upcoming Transportation Master Plan. During the process of developing the Active Transportation Master Plan, just so everybody here is a little bit more aware of the process, the goal of the Active Transportation Master Plan was to build a way for individuals living within the city, all throughout the city, to be able to get around safely for individuals of all ages, whether you have a driver's license or not. What we perhaps haven't seen this evening is that this is the culmination of a citywide plan to help manage traffic, not just in this area, but when we have an active front runner station in this area, with considerations that we've seen here this evening, to connect this through alternate means of transportation, through pedestrian, through walking, biking, individuals in wheelchairs, individuals who are riding the bus to get into this area. So much work throughout the city for many, many years is exactly in line with this. This is one of the keystones for much of the work that's happened in the city. I fully endorse what has happened, what Josh and Carla have presented here this evening, in that the more people who are out of cars, the more people who are using a non-car transportation network, be that buses, bikes, walking, wheelchairs, strollers, however it is, that some of the traffic concerns, of course the traffic concerns are very, very valid, because frankly, when 750 West was designed, it was designed badly. And a lot of the concerns that have been stated here tonight are 100% valid. Of course they are. And these are folks who live in this area and they experience it every day. Once this plan is implemented that we can see here, some of that should be alleviated by the network of other modes of transportation that can bring people to the front runner without having to only sit there in cars during rush hour. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Hill. You've already heard from my husband. We are at 1512 Renaissance Way. And I just wanted to reiterate that as you go forward and you make your vote, I hope that you don't make a vote just with the should. It's very real to us. If you live in our neighborhood, it would be really real to you. But like my husband said, we have the possibility of a huge overpass at the corner of our lot. We're on a corner. We're going to see every side of that overpass. I'm not sure if you've ever been in our neighborhood, but we can come. You're welcome anytime to come and see what that would be like. It would change our lifestyle, our love of our home quite a bit. And I hope that you're thinking that, taking that into consideration if it were going in your backyard. The other comment that I had to make really quickly is I had heard, rumor or not, I don't know, that this little roundabout idea right here is not a real roundabout, but it was spoken to me that that was one of the benefits of putting the overpass in that area. I don't know if that's true or not. I believe you did say that it's not an actual roundabout, so if it's not real, let's move it. Let's move it back over by DI and keep our homes similar to what we bought them, at least. I don't think any of us in our neighborhood were naive enough to think that there would never be any development by us. That's not what we're saying. We're saying be careful. It's our home. Don't put up big roads if we don't need them. Look at other options and really think about it if it's your home too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chad Kidder, 1129 West, 250 North, and one of the things that I've been a little disappointed with this plan is how making sure that 1200 and a lot of the traffic there is fully dealt with. Like when they had the show and tell, they weren't, the plan wasn't showing 1200 fully built up. I don't think what's on the screen doesn't show 1200 fully built up, like it's supposed to be. And we've got some concerns there because kids in those neighborhoods are going to be crossing 1200 to go to school. And on the north side there, you have Merritt, you have Reagan, you have West Side, and we're already having multiple kids hit every year on Center Street. And we're being told that this roundabout that's supposed to go in at Center and 1200 is going to make it safer. But, we're still waiting for someone to really show us the details there. But what I would ask is that as we consider this whole plan, we take this opportunity to make sure that that's safe there, not just for kids that are already going through there, but also for those that are going to be in the new neighborhood. because, you know, you'll have it at 1200, you'll have it at, what, 700 south or there is for kids coming across to elementary as well. And so that would be great, because the other thing is at 1200 and Center Street's unusable during, you know, during pickup some of the days. And so this is an opportunity to help fix, you know, some of the issues that are being seen there. And I'd just like us to not separate the transit part of this from everything, you know, from the zoning, because that seems to be where all the focus is the zoning right now, and the other stuff will just happen later or fall into place. I don't know, but that's an integral part of it. So thank you.
Keith?
Thank you.
Seeing no one come forward, I move we close the, oh, never mind.
Part of the MAG thing that they did, they found, and they worked up a plan. And the plan recommends nearly 60 specific policy, page 9, Josh. 60 specific policy and project actions for Springville, including teen driving education, speed enforcement, red light running enforcement, etc. The plan also notes that the feasibility and the implementation of these projects will need further study, detailed design, and public engagement. Has the city addressed these 60 issues from MAG?
This isn't, sorry, I just
Yeah.
clarify,
This
it's
is
not
a
a, it's not a
question.
dialogue. We're not
Oh, I'm sorry,
supposed to,
okay,
yeah.
It's
sorry.
just public comment. yeah.
Just
why you're
public
all
comment,
looking at
sorry.
me.
That's why we're all just looking at you, blank stare.
So what I'm gonna say is, MAG, the Mountain Land Association of Governments, has recommended to Springville, directly to Josh, 60 things that need to be implemented, including a few that I read, to bring our city up to a proper whatever for them. I'm asking you then to think about and perhaps ask Mr. Yosh, have these 60 issues by a governmental agency that brought up by a governmental agency, have they been addressed? And have they been rectified? Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We technically have a motion pending.
I think there's one more,
Oh,
might be a couple more.
and that's okay.
Hello, I'm Sue Helfrich, excuse me, and I live at 597 South, 1925 East on the east side of Springville. I used to live on Renaissance Way, and if they built this bridge, it would have built right behind my house. I love that community and I love the people there, and I feel very sorry for what they're going to have to put up with if you go ahead with that plan. I'm wondering, and it's probably a silly question, but have they ever done a soil analyst on these building lots? Because if you're going to be putting 3 and 4 story buildings on those lots, I know you're going to have to dig down really low to be able to sustain the weight. Also, 1,300 homes, that's going to be like 2,600 people, 2 per building, driving on the roads. Do you have any plans to do anything with 400 South that's already really busy? If you go there in the rush hour, the lines are all the way back to the second bridge. I know we've got that new off-ramp thing, but that's going to be for a lot of Spanish folk people, Mapleton, and with all these extra homes, it's going to be a lot worse. And I was going to mention about schools, I know somebody else did, that with those homes, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more children. Are you going to be building more schools? And the ones that don't have children, they're going to have dogs. So you can have a dog park. I mean, anyways, just a few thoughts that were in my mind. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Alford.
This may be a little bit down the road from this, but as I'm kind of looking at this plan and with connecting 1200, which I think it's really important that we have a lot of connections so that especially as there's more traffic, that some of the infrastructure can support that so that the large arterial roads are not as congested. But I'm wondering at that point, probably Center Street will become a larger east-west corridor, and the train crossing on the east tracks is really bumpy and kind of wonky, and so I'd just be curious in future to see a plan to adjust that train crossing as well, especially if if that street sees additional traffic with 1200 going through. So that's all.
Thank you.
Did we get her? Yes. Can we get your name and address? I'm so sorry. Oh, we don't need the address.
Okay, so sorry about that. My name's Amy Carlin, and I live at 1139 West, 200 South by Jakers.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Discussion?
I have a question for Josh. There's a lot of concern around the crossing at 900. I know we had highlighted the crossing at 700. Can
Yes.
you go through why that was not a feasible option and why UTA did not allow that?
So let me see if let me think for 5 seconds and put together a little outline in my head so I make sense of this.
Also to add to that, is it UTA doing the
Sorry.
bridge or us?
I'll talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like when you type into an AI chatbot and it spins for a minute. I'm just spinning.
Take your time.
So the Springville Transportation Plan has if I go back to the Westfield plan, you'll see these connections. We've always planned on and known that we needed an east-west connection across the rail between 400 and 1600 South. One of the problems right now is that if anybody on the east side of tracks in the Westfields wants to go to Walmart or wants to go to anything over there, they have to go out onto 400 South to get over there. So we're adding traffic to that arterial street because there's just no other alternative for local trips that don't need to go out there. If you've got to go to the freeway, you're going to go to 4th. But if you want to go to Walmart, right now you've got to go to 4th. And so we've always anticipated having those connections. 900 South is the primary street, East and West Street, and it in the plan, if you look, it is planned to go from SR 51 or South State Street all the way to the frontage road. And the only piece that's missing is the east side through the fields and the piece in between 12th West and 1750 West. So we've always had a plan for a street to go there, which I think everybody understands. What we haven't always had a plan for is for it to go over an overpass. The reason for that is because we are not able to secure a new at-grade crossing over the railroad. That railroad is owned, part of it is owned by UTA, part of it is owned by Union Pacific. We often joke, but it's not exactly an inaccurate description of the situation to say that in the hierarchy of things that, you have the city and the state and the federal government, depending on, how you view federalism and sovereignty. And then you have God, and then you have Union Pacific. Union Pacific changed recently from a guidance of saying you have to close 3 at-grade crossings to get 1 new one to, we'll just base it off of safety. And what that has meant in practice is that no at-grade crossings are safe. So through years of negotiation, working back and forth in this tangled, I hear that no doubt is touring again, so this tangled spider web of the Tintic line and the 1600 South overpass and us having to give up some right-of-way and all these interlocking things, the result of all of those was that we were not going to get a rail at-grade crossing across the rail, and that the grade separated crossing needed to go at 9th South because of its alignment with 9th South as the primary east-west collector through that area, which it's always planned to been. And because if we can't put the overpass at 7th because that's where the station goes. So really the only place that east-west connection works is at 9th, and if it could be at grade, I would love it to be at grade. I fought and cajoled and made engineers look at me with evil eyes, because it's not only that it impacts the people that are already there. It's that if you look at this map, we've got this white area south of 900 South. Those are houses too, or will be houses, and we're essentially putting up a big barrier through the middle of this neighborhood. We planned to have a street next, a trail next to the rail, and then 2 more streets. We're going to be lucky to get 1 street across 9th South to the west of 1200 West before the bridge because the bridge comes down so close to 1200 West. So it's not an outcome that we wanted, but the need and the usefulness of having access to the west side of our city other than 4th South, and now we'll have a bridge at 1600 South that goes over the rail, but to have an additional access for emergency services, to distribute traffic, to allow people to move from one side of the city to the other, that benefit in kind of a utilitarian standpoint is pretty big. So we have to weigh that against the impacts to those property owners, which are substantial. But the decision wasn't made lightly, and it wasn't made without a lot of pushback from the city to avoid a structure, because one, it's very expensive. It is physical and visual intrusion, but it's really the only way that we will be able to get a connection between 12th West and 1750 West, between 400 South and 1600 South. There's no other way. And as they've mentioned, there's very good reasons why we can't build an underpass, and the rail. Yeah, so it's not the outcome that in a non-constrained world we would want, but based on all of the factors in play there, and with other railroad closures and multiple projects intersecting around some complicated negotiations, this is the current path that's being pursued. And whether or not we adopt this station area plan is not a decision point about whether the bridge will happen. The bridge will happen at 9th, whether or not we adopt the stationary plan, just like Front River will come whether or not we adopt the stationary plan.
And the front rudder is what is planned to be near 7th, and that's why we can't put it there.
Yes, and because
we don't have control over that.
7th isn't the primary east-west street either. 7th doesn't continue, although it hits the railroad tracks and ends up in Main Street. The network design in the transportation master plan is to have that 9th South corridor be the primary east-west. But to one point, just because it's a bridge, it won't carry any more traffic than it would have if it had been an at-grade crossing. So the traffic, those impacts would be the same whether it's at a bridge or it's at grade. It coming in is obviously going to drive trips on that street. But again, yeah, it's not what we would have wanted, but this currently proposed solution represents is the result of a lot of planning, discussion, negotiation of the legislature with our lobbyist, with our mayor. We actually had the president of Union Pacific here, and they typically don't descend out of the ivory tower that much. So it's been a lot, and we don't love it, but it's the only way we're going to get an access across the rail.
I'm sure you guys have already been thinking outside the box and thought about an 850 south or some intermediate.
Well, yes, and to that I have to say that the exact engineering alignment of the bridge isn't set. We have some preliminary engineering, but the bridge Ninth South needs to connect to the intersection on the west, and it needs to connect to the intersection on the east. So we have as much ability to play with that alignment in between 1750 and 12th as we can, but we have to get back to those existing intersections on either side. So the bridge is, we can move the bridge as far north as is possible from an engineering standpoint to minimize the impacts and the adjacency to those backyards.
What are you talking about? I mean, how much are we talking about?
I'd have to pull up the preliminary engineering.
I'm sure every foot would make a difference.
Sure, yeah, of course it would. That is firmly in the realm of the design engineers, and I would have to go pull the preliminary engineering drawings to see where that is at. Something that I did mention at the open house, but that I'll mention again here, is that bridge is part of the Frontrunner project, and so it is part of the environmental analysis that is being done for that project, because that project will receive federal funding. It has to go through the analysis process specified in the Environmental Protection Act, or the National Environmental Policy Act, sorry. And so there will be opportunities as public hearings and public comment periods tied to the Frontrunner environmental study, just like some people may remember the 1600 South environmental study, for them to comment and respond to that plan and its analysis of, it will analyze vibration, light, noise, everything that could result, all of the potential negative effects of this action of building the bridge and building Frontrunner. But that will be part of that. So really the place to most effectively register concerns and comments about the bridge itself would be through the Frontrunner environmental process.
And the hearings and meetings that they have related
Correct.
to that.
There'll be a mandated public comment period. They will have public meetings.
Yes.
Just like they just did that for the Tintic realignment a couple months ago. So there'll be more of that.
How hard is it to change the zoning that you have here with the S42 and the S43? You have it at Res 15.
It's all just changing the color of the box.
I figured.
But I do have to point out that the existing zoning there allows taller buildings than would be allowed under this zone. That commercial zone allows the tallest zone in the city.
S41.
No, the zone that's there on the ground today.
Oh.
It would actually be all of those 6 blocks.
So everything
Yes.
south of the DI could be a 75-foot tall building.
Yeah.
It would have to be, and because it's across the street. Yeah, there's not actually even a setback or a residential buffer requirement because
There's
you're
not a
across the
buffer
street.
requirement.
So today, somebody could come in and actually somebody was looking at building something up in that area that was pretty tall. So you could have I call it the Eye of Sauron. What is it?
Modere.
The Modere building. You have the Modere building there today.
Yeah.
So have a 35-foot tall, or a 2.5-story residential is substantially less impact than what would there be now in terms of traffic and light and noise and all those type of things. But if there's a desire to shift those 2 blocks to the 10, that's just changing the color and
Because don't
updating the Excel spreadsheet.
Don't you think it would make a smoother transition for those people who live there?
Because of the bridge, no, I don't think it makes any difference because they're not going to see it. Which is one reason it's the color it is, because there's no visual connection
Between the two sides.
between the two sides.
Josh?
But isn't there
because-
an offset difference?
There's a slight difference in the
So you
setbacks,
potentially could put the setback, you could move the bridge further back if you had an offset that was different.
but even in terms of the density. And
No,
housing
the
type
bridge is
of
going to go, the zoning on the ground's not going to affect where the bridge goes.
Gotcha.
The plan on the ground will respond to where the bridge
Yeah.
goes. The bridge kind of is the first consideration.
Yeah.
Josh, that kind of leads to my question, and it has to do with, first of all, I recognize that this is designed, the objective is, one of the objectives, I shouldn't say the objective, but one of the objectives is to reduce traffic, because we put everything in this, what do you call it again, the city center, this, what'd you call it? You call it something up here. Anyway.
Village center.
Village center, yeah, the village center reduces traffic because
Well,
they have everything they need.
It's not
You're
going to
just
reduce
sa- but-
traffic.
Okay, then that's my point. But it's designed that as we grow as a city, that hopefully it will reduce traffic. As we have more residents move in, they won't be driving as much.
They will generate less
dependency.
trips than
Okay,
they
so
would otherwise.
That,
Yes.
with that
But it's
in
gonna
mind.
be more trips
With that in
total.
mind, that, and I know we've talked about this ad nauseum too, the hell we call Fourth South
Mhm.
for traffic is will be impacted by this.
Yes, and
Even-
has been
even if that's
planned
not the
to,
objective.
yes.
Yeah, and
So
so,
this was part of the active transportation.
yeah, I know,
plan. Yeah.
that's my point,
Yeah.
so, but regardless of whether or not this is the, part of the active transportation, the question is, and you asked about traffic studies earlier, and there was no answer really on traffic studies.
No, he said they had done traffic studies.
They've done them, but
Well, and
For
the
what end?
transportation master plan utilizes the existing plan on the ground to run its numbers to tell us what we need. And this new plan doesn't substantially change the plan on the ground.
Yeah.
So we've been planning for this much traffic for 20 some odd years already.
okay, so
Yeah.
we've been planning for this much
Yes.
traffic backing out onto
Yes.
I-15. So
Yes.
we like that.
No, but there's only so much you can do about it, and adding more lanes isn't going to make it better.
Yeah, but adding more people isn't gonna make it better either.
But this doesn't necessarily add.
It does, he just said it's not gonna reduce traffic, so.
It will add,
Increase traffic
No,
if there's
from
more
what,
people.
there, but there's already this plan there. And this is
get
just
it.
an addendum, like a
Right, so
change to
yes.
that
Like,
plan.
like in a,
Yeah.
yeah.
in
like
absolute
addition.
terms, yes, there will be more traffic. In terms of the alternatives between what would the traffic be if we adopted this plan or if we stayed with the current plan, that difference is negligible. And this plan is probably better because it does a better job of being designed in such a way that it's more likely to capture more internal trips, which means that people live there
Yeah,
are less likely to
That-
drive
that was
out.
the reason I was saying that part at the first, and I get
Yeah.
that. That's what I'm saying, I get that piece. That said, we're not gonna see a reduction in traffic.
No.
So we will see an increase in traffic, so.
Yes.
What are the plans to deal with this, so we don't have 800 accidents or whatever it is a year and one fatality? And who knows how many other, because, and we haven't had this conversation, so this is me being ignorant and learning right now. But I've read different studies that say some of the worst intersections in the United States, in Utah, are right here in Springville. And I think it includes intersections
I
on
mean,
this
that
road,
may or-
it includes intersections down by McDonald's.
And there's a couple points there that are interesting.
And I know it's UDOT and all that kind of stuff.
True.
We
I
can
mean,
all
UDOT
blame
does
UDOT,
control
right?
those streets. But there is actually the correlation between trips, which is like how many people are driving, and accidents. There's a correlation, but it's not a causal correlation beyond the fact that, yes, if nobody's there, you're going to have no accidents. But actually the design of the intersections and the speed at which people are traveling on those facilities has a far greater causal correlation with the number and severity of accidents. If you go to New England states, they actually do have quite a bit of like fender benders, but they have very, very few significant accidents and very, very few fatalities. So they've decided that for them, they're going to move traffic slower and have less severe accidents, but in some cases they do have more, fender bender, people bumping into each other. So really the biggest problem to solve on 4 South is not the number of trips that are happening on 4 South. It's that 4 South is designed like a car sewer.
What does that mean?
That means it's a big pipe for crap to go down.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I can't remember your name that mentioned the general plan. What she was referring to in the general plan existing conditions document was actually a critique of the transportation master plan that I pushed for, that says our transportation master plan right now doesn't say, it just says, hey, there's this many cars and it takes this long for a car to go through an intersection, and if it delays more than X amount of delay, then we should make the intersection bigger. It doesn't say, hey, does that make our place better or worse? Does it make it more or less safe? Does it increase the value of property or decrease the value of property? None of that calculus is part of our transportation master plan. It's just simply, if delay exceeds this, we build more stuff. We build more street. So what we need to do on 4th South to make 4th South a better place and to make it safer is accept the trade-off between speed and lane width and safety. Because in that type of road where you have lots of signals, it's not the width of the lanes or the number of lanes that control how many cars can get through, it's your intersections. So in Sugar House, in Salt Lake on 2100 South, which used to be a 5-lane arterial like 4th South, from 13th East to 7th East and through Highland Drive, they actually narrowed it to 1 lane in each direction. And it has not changed the throughput there because they flare it back out of the intersections. So yes, there will be more traffic as we develop, but it doesn't have to mean that we have a decrease in safety. The decrease in safety, or the safety is controlled by the design of the street far more than it is the number of people that are driving on the street. How fast they're driving, how attentive the street design directs them to be about how they drive. So there are things we can do that are well documented and accepted in the engineering and transportation planning field to make that more safe. We just have to get past.
So are those pieces in our active transportation plan?
We don't control 4th South.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And UDOT's primary concern is throughput, which is how many cars can go through there and how fast. And that's incompatible with, as you put more cars through faster, it's less safe.
Would we control 9th?
We do. We do control all, UDOT's in control of I-15, 1400 North Main Street, all the way down SR 51, 89, and 4 South to Main Street. So yes.
So what conversations are being had with UDOT on this issue?
Well, 1200 West, we have the plan to, the forever plan to extend 1200 West through. So that will allow people to get off of 4th at more places instead of everyone really congealing at 950 West, which 12th should have been in already. It's just been really delayed. So 950 is broken because it's carrying more traffic than it was supposed to carry. So as we get 1200 West in and the additional turn lanes and everything that is designed for there, that will help people that are going up into the circulating through the city to spend less time on 4 South. We are continually in discussions with UDOT as to whether we believe it is, a signal is warranted at 7th West, primarily from a safety and north-south crossing standpoint. And, but yes, we're continually pushing in that direction, and we continue to work to balance the interests internally in the city between the safety and the multimodal access and the throughput and the speed.
Hunter talked about where housing is going in the United States, which includes Utah. And by the way, thank you for the comments on the traffic. I'm not sure that. Yeah, I wish UDOT would help us out a little bit there. But that got me thinking about schools, and it was mentioned several times today, and the number of children. I know the demographics are changing. People aren't having kids like they were, except Hunter is. And my children are.
Good.
Yeah. Anyway, are we talking with the school district right now?
Yes, consistently.
Okay, so they're aware that they
Yes.
they need to have
Plan for
plans.
this.
Yeah, we have regular meetings with the school district to coordinate development, our interlocal agreements, all of those things.
Continues with the safety issue, which is
Correct.
very significant.
Safe routes to school. There's committees involving our public works department works with the safe routes committees at each school. The school district has about 80 acres purchased in the what we call the Dry Creek area. So basically north of the Ash Grove cement plant for potentially a new high school and junior high. I don't know. I have not heard any feedback from them as to how they plan to address the continual build out of the Westfields in terms of elementary schools, because there's still a lot of housing to be built in the Westfields, not including the station area plan, and I don't know what their census is at Westside and Meadowbrook.
They plan far ahead.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
They plan
but
far
it's-
ahead and they watch their numbers and.
That's why the conversation with Josh right now is, are you in constant
Yes.
communication with
Yeah.
them?
They
So
have-
that they're aware of what is occurring.
We just
and
want
you
one
and you
record.
answered that question.
Anne had a comment.
So, yeah, I'm just still back on the traffic because I'm looking at the number of units and those units bringing their cars out on 400. And then I'm looking at the Allen's block, which is another development, and they're all coming on 400. And I already can hardly get home if I come during a rush hour for half an hour
Right.
from the freeway to East Springville. Like, I'm serious when I say that. I did that the other day at 4:30, and it was ridiculous. And so you add this, and you add Allen's block, and I'm not sure that works. And I don't know what the plan is to make that better, but I cannot envision it, and I know all the people around me talk about it all the time. And I'm concerned if I vote for this and this much housing, I'm also responsible for that, and I have
Right.
to answer to that, and that's concerning to me.
1600 South is a big part of it, and we want to provide additional options.
But that's an off-ramp for, and I see where that goes, and I do think that will take care of some of it, but it's not gonna really help Springville that much, maybe South Springville.
Oh, it will, because right now, if you want to go to northern Spanish Fork or to Mapleton at all, you pretty much get off at 4th. Right now,
You're
the
only on
percentage, it's like 90% of people going through the 4 South Main Street intersection at rush hour are started outside of Springville and are ending outside of Springville.
My
What
son
percent
takes
was that
My
again?
son lives in Mapleton.
It's like 90%
He tells
of
me when that-
peak hour trips there are beginning and ending outside of Springville.
90%.
Yeah.
We're confident in that number.
That's what the traffic model data says.
UDOT traffic model.
Both big data traffic model. So from a program called Streetlight, which uses anonymized GPS stuff. I will go back to the Main Street plan. Fair and Piers run those numbers for us and look at it again. I may be misremembering the number, but it is a
Because
very,
90%
very high
seems
number.
huge. Only 10% of the people that are driving on that road are Springville residents.
At peak,
At peak.
yeah,
That's
I-
why.
AM, PM peak.
Definitely, some of them are in Mapleton, no doubt.
So if we can,
No doubt, but
if-
90%.
But it'll take people that live in the south part of Mapleton, but people who live in North Mapleton will probably still take the same route.
yeah, the model says it doesn't move a ton until the connection between 51 and 89 gets in.
Yeah.
When
But
is
when
that
that-
gonna happen? Because that.
The legislature
that's
allocated
a huge part of this.
$40 million for the rail consolidation a couple of years ago, and we're pushing it.
But that's a huge part of that.
That's a huge part of it.
That, if 90% is the right number, that little connection.
Because
is
right now, what do? You
significant
go on
part of that
Evergreen
number.
or under the sketchy bridge.
Yeah.
Over the top.
So
Yeah.
and then additional north-south connections that we're trying to complete, especially in your area of town, and like the 8th East roundabout that will connect the southern leg of 8th East again, where it's been closed for, I don't know, long before I showed up. And that will essentially, you'll be able to follow 8th East all the way from north, 4th Center, and then it will connect there and then connect down to Mapleton to a street in Mapleton. So we're trying to kind of make those local links. But the kind of heretical position is that if traffic gets bad enough, the model tells us that people will they will do 3 things. They'll change when they travel. They'll change how they travel. They'll change their time, their mode, or they'll change their origin and destination. That traffic isn't like water in a pipe. It's not going to explode if we put too much water in it, but it's made up of individual people making individual decisions. And once it gets to a point where it's not tolerable, people will make different decisions. And that if we try to address that by adding more capacity, like we did at 4th South 6 years ago, and lost the park strips and the trees and all that niceness in that 2 blocks, that it just gets bad again up into the point that people will tolerate it. So it's a policy and philosophy question. It's how do we retrofit our cities that we've made that to go anywhere you have to put yourself in a big metal box and drive there. It's multifaceted, and it's not just about the roadway network, but it's a primary struggle, and it's something that comes out in our citizen survey as one of citizens' biggest concerns.
Yeah.
So we don't know when that connection will be made after 1600 South.
No, part of the work has been funded, but the biggest part of that is UP needs to consolidate the rail lines because we can only go over one, and once they've got it moved to the east. And there's a number of impacts to homes there, as you're aware.
Yeah.
So Josh, let me just clarify. So is this new plan, is it reducing the amount of housing or is it increasing?
It's increasing.
Okay. So you talked about the housing that could be, go 50 stories high. How is this increasing over that original plan? Or what's in place, you said?
Right. The 50 stories was just a hypothetical about how you back into a number. Yeah.
That is not going to happen.
Just trying to clarify that this is what we're talking about.
Yes. The existing Westfields plan aimed for a average density here of around 10 units to the acre. We've pushed the total units up primarily because we've added these additional units to the west of the rail.
Where there was commercial.
Where previously was commercial.
So that's for the
which technically, if you look at the engineer's trip generation manuals, generates fewer trips than commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, commercial generates more trips, right?
Yes.
More traffic.
Yes.
So by switching it to residential, there'll be fewer trips.
Yes.
According to
But we've
models.
also incrementally moved the north and the south up just a little bit. So I have all the spreadsheets of the exact kind of block by block comparisons, but generally we're in the area where nobody in public works, administration, when Troy usually calls me out on all these things, everyone was comfortable that we were within the range of the planning window that we've been planning on, that this isn't a material or a statistically significant deviation from that would mess up our utilities and mess up our streets beyond what we've already been planning for.
So you gave us two figures before that were like, this was how many housing units per acre? What was that, like 8.3? 8.3.
8.3, 8.4.
So it's not a dramatic increase, or is it a dramatic? Can you speak to that?
It's the same net density. Well, actually, the Westfield plan used gross density, so this is a tricky one.
Yeah.
Gross density means you draw a box around the whole thing and you include the streets and the parks and everything, and the denominator in your units to acre has a bigger units to the acre, so a gross density, 9 units or 10 units gross, is more units than 10 units net.
Yeah.
Because 10 units gross, then you have to take out 20% for roads. So you're actually counting the roads towards how many units you get. So if you're at 10 units per acre for 100 acres gross, you get 1,000 units. If you're at 10 units an acre net, that means you're only getting the land that's not in the streets. So we're looking at 8.4 units to acre net, which is 20, let's say 20% less than growth. So 80, it would be, if we were stayed at 10, it'd be 10 times 80 instead. So you're actually 200 units less, about 20% less over a gross versus net number. But the total number of units is slightly more because, again, we've added the units to the west of the rail, and we've moved the north and south up from an R18 to probably something that's more akin to an R15.
So what, do you know what the total number of units, the increase from A to B is, from the old to the new?
Total absolute units for the whole area?
Yeah, are we talking, we're not talking about like thousands of units that weren't there before.
No, that's
Talking about, I'm just trying to get clarity on how much increase we're talking. Are we talking hundreds of units, or are we talking?
It could be hundreds, but it's not 300.
Okay.
It's just really hard to tell because and this is a shortfall of our previous planning, all those mixed use areas that were shown in the Westfields plan didn't actually tell us how many units you could get. And it would really depend on how they use the zoning and how many they put in there. So we could go back and make some assumptions like, hey, if everybody built X number of units, because it's related to how much you can have, how much ground floor commercial you have and how much street frontage you have. So I was actually working all the way down that rabbit hole, and Troy said to me, that's good to know, but he was comfortable with we're in the same range. So I can bracket that based on some assumptions, but I would be comfortable saying that we're not
Talking several hundred.
beyond plus or minus 200-300 total
I
across
just
the whole
wanted to
area.
clear, because I mean, I've lived here a long time, like a lot of these people here. I mean, I had one street light between my house and I-15.
And no bridges.
And, yeah, but I also waited for the train a lot of times, so I
Did you see Al
can't
mowing the
complain
lawn?
about that, but now I think I had, last count, I had 14. But now there's great places, and we have some great people that have come to our valley that we want to welcome and to be part of it, but at the same time, I just wanted to be clear, we're not talking about like infusing something that hasn't already been planned for the last 20 years.
Which is why we pushed back so hard on
Right.
the 2,000 number we were at earlier this year.
Because when our family settled, I mean, you know, there was no State Street, and they had, you know, front yards that were 60 feet deep, and now they're 50-mile-an-hour cars going past that same home. So I just wanted to be clear, we're not talking tonight, we're not talking about like infusing like thousands of homes into a place that wasn't already planned or people didn't have land, so.
Correct.
And it's unfortunate that it's a difficult situation. I feel really bad for the hills and for others that are you know, it is difficult. I used to could see the mountain. But you know, anyway, okay, that's
So-
just my,
Go
I
ahead,
just
you
wanted to
should
clarify.
And we can hit the Excel more if you'd like to as well.
My question goes back to more in terms of the specific layout of blocks
Mm-hmm.
that you have. How rigid is that?
Not.
First.
It's not rigid. This is not a regulating plan.
Okay, so it's good to know, because I think at the next step of a planning process, I think we could address a lot of the concerns that we heard here in terms of, like I was briefly talking with Ann about bridge placement with the east side of the tracks being greenfill, or greenfill meaning it's a field now. I think there's a potential or an opportunity that as we move forward in planning and zoning, that we can look at a block structure that potentially shifts that to more like an 850 location-ish.
Again,
so
it's
that-
not really. We're not in the driver's seat on the block structure. Isn't on the driver's seat on that. It's the bridge is going to go where it goes, and then we'll design around it. So if we need to continue to advocate to push the bridge as far north as possible, that's just an individual.
And that's
item.
what I would probably suggest, because where the roundabout is at 1750 and where the next connection is over by the rec center at 900, at 1200, there's a lot of empty land there to where a block structure could influence that bridge location. And knowing that there are residents that are extremely concerned about it, I would think that we would, as a city, try to advocate to push that, even if it's half a block north.
And we have.
Okay.
There's only so much you can bend the road before you get to the bridge, and curving the bridge is very, very, very difficult, and very, very, very expensive. So it really comes back to the engineers of how long after the intersection do you have to have a straight, and then how hard can you curve it, and then. But yes, we've communicated that to UTA that's running the design of the bridge, that it is our interest that we move it, that it be aligned as far north as feasible and still connect on the east and west sides.
Including taking into account a buffer from the lots just south of.
Right, it's just simply how far north can we move the bridge? And what we do with that remaining property, it probably, if
Whether
there's
it's
a
a
remainder
greenbelt or
there,
something.
or it just goes to the residents, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of options for that, but where the bridge is an engineering issue that is informed by the interests of, we want to reduce impacts as much as possible, but also informed by, the highway design manual and.
And then my other comment was just on, similar to the block structure and safety aspect. I think, I don't know if he's still here, but the one that lived in the townhomes up on 1200, but as I live in Brookside, and we actually, as a neighborhood, opted and came to the city to try and put in a bump out. So those poles that you guys probably find are really annoying as you're going to Reams from the high school, we actually wanted those to be put in because it necks the traffic down and forces them to slow down. I know that that's part of our active transportation plan as far as traffic calming measures. Even with new development, especially, it's a lot easier. There's another example of a concrete bump out in front of Meadowbrook Elementary, that over by the rec center. So I don't think the city is being cavalier in terms of traffic safety. Having dealt with the, public works and trying to get just those things put in, it was quite a process, but ended up being good for us as a community over there. So, anyways, and then I know Ann's gonna talk about it as well, but there's concerns about the density and different things with the density and everything, the way that it's laid out, and knowing that the block structure isn't fixed. I would hope that, again, as we get into more of a regulating plan scenario, we can get more and more specific about number of stories and the way the massing of these work.
Yes.
so that they are more contextual with what's going on around them. And I know Anne's going to talk about this, and I know it's a concern of hers. I personally don't know that 200 units makes or breaks this plan in terms of the difference or number of people. 200 units could happen in a single building down in the village center pretty easily. So I don't know that would be a huge detriment to the whole thing.
I just want
Can
to
I
clear because.
poke in on the 1200 West quick? We are moving into final design on the fourth to center portion of 1200 West. And so that's a public works project, and they, for all of you that are adjacent to that, they will be following, our public outreach procedures and engaging people on that. So please engage on that as you have the opportunity. And we are consistently talking about what traffic calming measures are appropriate there, how we create safe crossings east to west, because we're gonna have a lot of people. I mean, the schools, the parks, just, hey, I want to walk across the street to my friend's house. How do I cross this big road? All those things are in there, and we could always do more. And, advocacy from the public for that is always helpful. But that is coming fast. Public Works, their goal is to be under construction on that section of 1200 West, at least one half of it, next summer. So if you're interested in that, now's the time to engage and be paying attention to outreach and communication from Public Works on 1200 West.
So I think the last thing I'll say is, so we're looking at a plan that was approved in 2002, and.
The old one, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, the old one,
Modified plan, yeah.
right, so now we're modifying it,
Mhm.
and it is gonna create about 200 more homes-ish, give or take.
I can go and do more specific math and give you a more bracketed number, but I'm confident it's in that realm.
So kind of summarize the reason for that. Like, the reason why we need to add the additional homes, just kind of summarize before we vote.
One reason is that we have not, it may not be a mandate, but one of the reasons it doesn't concern us from an objective standpoint is that we have seen less density and less units come in the Westfields than we were planning for. So looking at it as a whole, it actually doesn't move the number because the rest of the Westfields neighborhoods have yielded less units than anticipated. So if we go back to that the Westfields plan map, there's a total number at the bottom, and I have a spreadsheet that kind of tracks it. Generally, we're under that. So overall, across the, Hobble Creek to 1600 South, 4th West to 1750 West, it's basically a wash. Why we would want to consolidate some of that here is because if we can put people that want or need housing that is different than the surrounding housing, if somebody wants to live in a townhome, the best place to put that is somewhere close to all the stuff they need already. It's going to generate less traffic on the streets than putting townhomes far away at the edge. And just that in the 20 plus years, the picture of the type of housing people need, the type of housing the market's delivering, and that affordability and housing supply picture, we're 35,000 houses short today, including all the stuff we're building. We're about 35,000 houses behind in Utah in general, and Utah County has a big part in that. So providing places for new people to be part of Springville, like we've done for 25 years in the Westfields, where it used to be like 6 people out there, is important. And we're obviously that doesn't hold up forever. We can't say, well, we should just go to 100-story towers then because we need more people. But because it doesn't move the needle overall, and because bringing the same number of units closer to transit and closer to amenities is better, that it makes sense here. And also, you know, the market, like I said, the market pushes that as well too. So like I said, we started at 2,000 plus.
Thank you, I thought the summary was good.
Someone brought up parking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure you probably already talked about this or have.
Oh no, actually, that was one of the later comments.
Yeah.
This is another one where I get a lot of side eye from UTA. I can't remember. You mentioned, yes. They want all the park and ride and all the bus loops on the east side, and I do not want all the park and ride and all the bus loops on the east side, because I want the east side to be a civic space in a community, not a parking wasteland with a 12 bus bay.
Yeah.
So we continue to have discussion about how much of that commuter parking especially we can push to the west side. Oh, well, they have to walk up and over. And my response is the people that are coming there every day to commute, they know that where they park, they know how to walk over the bridge, they know how to plan for the time. Yes, we should have some parking in there for the family that decides they want to go see the lights in Temple Square in December and only uses it once a year. But we don't need 500 parking stalls for those people.
Yeah.
So we are consistently pushing in this environmental process to make sure they are clearing, they are evaluating the west side of the rail so that when we come to it and they don't come back and say, hell, we didn't look at that in the environmental, so we can't do that. So we're consistently pushing, can you move buses over there? And there's concerns about the people making connections, but we're also saying the bus route goes down 1750 West anyway. So you're coming off 4th, going in, going back to 4th, and then over and down 1750 West. So could we distribute parking and connections in a way that still meets UTA's operational goals and still meets our interests in keeping especially the east side of the rail for it to be a place instead of a giant park and ride?
Mm-hmm.
So you're actively trying.
Yes, I am hitting that button every time we talk. Yeah.
Anyone ready to make a motion, or we have more discussion?
Are there any amendments, or like, I guess now it's time for the internal discussion with us. Are there any amendments that we would like to see, or is there anything else that?
Here's the struggle I have with making amendments at this point. It's something you brought up, Hunter, about what you call them, the blocks.
Mhm.
The whether or not the blocks were.
This isn't regulatory. This
Yeah.
this is visioning essentially.
Yeah. And I guess my whole issue is, I want to make sure that we're going to have a conversation at some point where we can recommend approval for this, because right now I don't feel comfortable. If this is like the permanent thing and this is how we're going to look at it, I'm not comfortable approving this. So the reason you don't hear me making a motion right now is because I don't know how to modify this motion to accomplish the goals that are in my mind, just because I'm not sure if we're at 60,000, 30,000,
Well, and
10,000.
that goes back to what I would suggest as far as before approving. I would like this to be a little bit less specific in terms of, right now we are showing streets. We are showing like even some bump outs for street parking and things, and it seems very regulatory. I think before it gets put into place in terms of an overlay or an area plan, I'd like to see it a little bit more, more vague and more adaptable or so that there's more and more clarity as we're moving through the process, not.
Because this looks more like a zoning map.
Like we've already got.
Than it does like a land use.
And I think that's part of the
you're
reason
not
why
seeing anybody make a motion.
And part of the reason why I think people were confused or frustrated, I think there's a little bit of confusion in terms of what is exactly happening. And it's not necessarily that the block structure or the exact densities are going to happen. It's really, this is an intent, or a vision of what this could be, and I think the proposal of the area plan could be amended to be a little bit more clear in terms of making it a vision rather than a more clear. Sorry.
And when the time comes to have this conversation, you know, we're looking at something that's maybe more specific even than this.
Yeah, and there'll be more,
This is kind
there'll
of
be more
in between the
planning put
vision
into
and the
it before.
specificity. Because I think if a motion were made tonight based on this, I certainly wouldn't. Feel
And it's got to be
comfortable with
tough too, because you are having conversations with UTA on the tracks and what that does look like, and so I think maybe there just needs to be a blurring of the line of what is specific and what is not.
And do you feel like that needs to happen on the map, or because the plan is clear that this is
The UTA station is a given, right?
Yeah.
But I think,
Yes.
I think as far as this bridge goes, you know, one of the conversations we've had is how much of a buffer zone is there, and you've been talking to them about pushing it as far north as you can to not, you know.
and this
affect
plan's
the
not going to
neighbors.
address that at any level.
Yeah.
Yes.
This plan is just responding to the fact that we've been told there's going to be a bridge there.
I think it's
Yes.
essentially taking your land use types and moving them to the center of the road,
Okay.
so that we're not showing specific layouts. Like, we do have a proposed transportation plan or where those layouts could be, but
Generally, diagrammatically.
diagrammatically, and that right
Yeah.
now this is not reading as diagrammatic. It's
Yeah.
because it's not to the center line.
Exactly, yeah.
Because, yeah, the plans we're currently iterating with property owners and with UTA don't look like this. And the plan, the only thing in the plan the hardest thing in the plan is we're not going to see more density than what we've shown, and we're going to see at least as much open space as we've shown, and we're going to see commercial that we've shown. But this is an illustration of how it could happen. So if it helps to make this more bubble diagram-y, that's something we can do.
This feels just too permanent.
I think it's going back to your conversation of gross versus net. I think at this phase, it'd probably be beneficial to see a gross view rather than a net view of the density.
Okay.
Maybe what we ought to do is continue this, and then maybe can we provide you with comments about what, I've heard lots of different comments about what, there are some things that this isn't really about, okay? It's not about the UTA station. It's not really about the fixed bridges. I think that would be helpful to kind of separate it out so that we have a clear, and I totally appreciate everybody's comments and everything else, but maybe what we ought to do is continue this, but then maybe you could give us a little bit more information about what is actually part of this plan.
What does this
because-
plan control?
Right, what
Yeah.
does this plan control, and also how much impact we're talking about, you know, what are we doing, why are we moving the needle, how are we moving the needle, and how will that go, so.
Now, what are
With
the
that, I will
changes?
make a motion. I move that we, continue this and, to, next, I don't know, in 2 weeks.
This isn't a 2-week turnaround.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
How much
tell
time
us,
do you need?
Uh,
how much time do you need to
I'll-
continue it?
You could just say, if you would just continue it
To a future date.
to a future date, we'll bring it back as soon as we can. And if there's any additional guidance
Sure.
as part of that motion, so
That will
we
provide
spend
him-
this time doing exactly what you,
What
addressing your concerns.
Okay, and it will also allow for the public, for anybody else to put inputs in as far as what we've done. We've talked about, can absorb these comments that have been made. So I move that we continue this action on the Springville Station area plan till a future date.
I'll second that.
With the comments and things that have been
Nope,
presented.
just like I said, till a future date.
No, with
Dave.
them working
I'm
on
saying
the comments.
with them working on the things that, that
Just to
you
keep
talked
Dave.
about and Hunter talked about.
Second.
Oh, we have, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. All right. So we will continue this until, and give the planners time to incorporate the things that we've talked about with the, making it more clear what this plan is actually going to affect and the changes that this plan will make.
Just a clarifying question.
Yeah.
We had a motion to continue. Typically, it's most productive for me to respond to the planning commission and make the changes that you'd like to be made if some of those things are in a motion, because then I know that they represent the voice of the commission.
That's what I was,
So right now,
I was
I'm
hoping we could just like take what.
right. So right now, I'm gonna go and say, Hunter wants it more bubble diagrammy, and I don't know if everybody does, but right now I do that, and I answer Ralph's couple of questions, and
That's why I made the motion to just continue, because I don't know what everybody's doing, and I think we can provide you with that information, and then,
He wants that within
He
the
wants
motion
that
now.
now, yeah. It helps him
well,
to
then
have it in the
someone else
motion.
can make a different motion. then.
well,
I mean, we've already.
yeah. So,
The motion has been
yeah.
made, seconded, and voted on, right?
Yeah.
So how would we go about something like
So
that?
now,
Well,
can we make another motion?
It's a Robert's Rules thing. I'd have to go get the get the sheet. Somebody can Google it if there was a desire to. I will do the best I can based on what I've heard from all of you.
Is it legal for us to provide you with an email with our concerns?
I'd rather that be done in public.
Public, no.
Yeah.
Can we do a public work session?
Absolutely.
I think that would probably be beneficial.
Do you want to come back and have a work session
'Cause
on this at the next meeting?
I think that's one thing that I don't know that we do often enough
Yeah.
on some of this. Is
I just
as
bring you something that's done and ask you.
Right, and then that way we can do a work session, answer questions, and then give you more clear feedback. Does that
Yeah, we can do a staff and planning commission work session
Let's do that.
on this.
We don't have to vote on that. That's just something.
No, you're
that
the
we
chair.
can
You
do.
can just tell me what you want on the agenda.
We would
uh,
like a work session. We doing planning and the commission to go over the station
When
area
is
plan,
the-
please.
When is the training?
Soon? Yeah?
'Cause I don't want to double you up on the training week.
That end,
Yeah,
'cause that would solve the problem.
Okay. How about I take that direction and we'll follow up with you and let you know when we can schedule that.
Excellent.
Thanks, Josh.
And we'll make sure that everyone that we've got contact information and stuff for gets notice of that too from the
And
public.
those of you that are still here, thank you again for joining
Yes,
us and
thank you.
making your concerns heard.
Do we
And that work session will be
Public.
public and noted, and
It-
so,
It won't be like a participation, everyone come participate, though. That will be a planning commission
Public hearing, yeah.
Conversation.
working
Yeah.
session.
but you are welcome to come.
It would be a sit and listen moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready to?
We don't have any other items.
I'll
Uh,
motion to adjourn.
I'll third that.
Adjourn. Oh, wait. All in favor?